Chapter 752. The four middle-aged men at the corner of the street were not the only ones who watched the massacre. Although it was a special period, there were still some people passing by. But at this time, everyone was hiding far away, looking at this one-sided massacre with fear. It was an era of peace, and there were very few murders on Mist Source Island in the past. But now, dozens of people were killed in a massacre. This was simply unimaginable in the hearts of these people. At this moment, one of the two murderers stood proudly at the entrance of the Huimin supermarket. He glanced at the people in the distance and shouted in a deep voice, "They deserve to die for endangering public security." Mist Source Island is now under the threat of the darkening virus, but some people are creating panic, burning, killing, and looting. Such people must pay a painful price. The government can't manage it now, and the police can't be on duty. So, people like us will replace the judges and police to enforce the law. All criminals who endanger public security must be punished by us. Replace the government? For a time, all the people who were afraid were filled with awe. They were well aware that the current public security was very poor, and even the police couldn't maintain public security because of the infection. Ordinary people like them were more or less affected by it. Suddenly, everyone's heart calmed down. Those who were ready to hide also put away the thought of leaving. They quietly observed their combat strength in various directions, watching the two killing gods. Vigilantes. That's right. In their hearts, they secretly gave these two people a name, Vigilante. The burly man standing proudly at the entrance of the Huimin supermarket looked around and noticed the change in the expressions of the surrounding people. Then, he spoke in a clear voice again, "It's the divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu from the mainland. He's doing his best to research the antidote for the darkening virus. I hope everyone can tell each other that the infectious disease crisis will be lifted soon." After saying that, he waved to the four middle-aged men at the corner and asked aloud, "How are your bodies? If the injuries are not serious, please ask your friends around to help dispose of these corpses. Remember, it's best to immediately send these corpses to the crematorium and burn them to prevent the emergence of other infectious viruses." "We're fine." Although the four middle-aged men were badly injured, and one of them was seriously injured, they still forced themselves to walk step by step. Needless to say, the appearance of these two people had saved the lives of the four of them. They were their saviors. If that's the case, we'll be leaving first. There are still other areas that we need to patrol. The two men cupped their fists, then quickly returned to the car, started the car, and drove away. Python City. Wooly dragged her tired body and carried some food that she had just bought from the supermarket. Step by step, she walked towards her home a few hundred meters away. She was also infected by the darkening virus, and it was a very serious case. Although the static electricity suppressed the spreading of the darkening virus, it tortured her day and night, causing her to feel weak all over. She was a single mother with a 6-year-old daughter. Although she usually had a good job and a considerable income, and even hired a nanny at home, the nanny had now left. She was the only one who could take care of her daughter. This feels great. The two drunk men were wearing suits, leather shoes, and ties. Even their hair was neatly combed. Even if they weren't bosses, they were at least executives of the company. However, the two of them looked a little drunk at the moment. Looking at the beautiful Wooly, they even revealed lewd smiles. "What are you doing?" Wooly's expression changed when she was blocked by the two men. She had heard that the entire Python City had been very chaotic in the past few days. There were even many murders. One of the men raised his hand and touched his chin. He laughed mischievously and directly pounced on Wooly. He hugged her and impatiently kissed her. Slap. Although Wooly didn't have much strength and couldn't even keep up with the speed of the man, it wasn't a problem for her to slap him. Unfortunately, her strength was limited, and she couldn't break free from the man's embrace. "Stinking whore, how dare you hit me?" The man let go of Wooly and swung his fist at Wooly's eye socket. After knocking her to the ground, he immediately started punching and kicking her. "Old Joe, don't hurt her." We brothers still need to have some meat today. The other man stopped him and was about to drag Wooly up. Wooly endured the pain in her body and shouted for help. However, there were many people passing by at this moment. There were at least dozens of people passing by within a radius of 200 meters, but none of them came to help. Everyone looked on with cold eyes, as if the matter had nothing to do with them. Creak, a car stopped nearby and a big man jumped out of the car. A sharp dagger directly pierced the two people's hearts. Aya, Wooly was shocked by the sudden turn of events. She staggered a few steps back and fell on her but on the cold concrete floor. The big man shouted in a deep voice, "The police can't maintain public order, so I'll be the representative of the law. Anyone who dares to endanger public safety, kill, burn, and loot, and commit all kinds of crimes will be killed without mercy. Listen to me, cowards around you. Whoever dares to create panic and violate the law will be mercilessly suppressed and killed by us. Divine Dr. Gue Jiancho is currently researching an antidote to treat the infectious disease and is expected to succeed in the next few days. I hope you can tell each other that you'll know your place and wait for the antidote to be delivered to your door." After saying that, the big man strode to Wooly and looked at her panic-stricken face. He reached out to help her up from the ground and said, "Hurry up and go home. Wait for the antidote to be delivered to your door and resume your normal life." "Thank you. Thank you." A grateful look appeared on Wooly's face and she kept thanking him. The big man said with a simple and honest smile, "This is what we should do. It's everyone's responsibility to maintain social stability and ensure public order." Soon after, the big man returned to the car and quickly left. Wolfpack City. Mixed Summit City. Similar things were happening everywhere. Everyone who violated the law was mercilessly killed and suppressed in a bloody manner. The deeds of the vigilantes were also passed on by word of mouth and quickly spread in the 4 major cities. Some people who committed crimes and harbored evil intentions were shocked by the news and didn't dare to act rashly for a while. In addition, the news that Divine Dr. Gue Jiancho was researching an antidote and that he would be able to develop an antidote in the next few days was like it had grown wings and was known by countless people in the 4 major cities. Suddenly, they seemed to see hope and prayed that Divine Dr. Gue Jiancho could smoothly develop an antidote. Mist Source Island. In the south of the Central Mountain, in a village with only 1 or 2,000 households, Tan Xiu personally killed a group of tyrannical village tyrants whose hands were stained with the blood of others and then announced that Divine Dr. Gue Jiancho was about to develop an antidote for the darkening virus. Suddenly, everyone was grateful to Tan Xiu. Everyone seemed to see hope. In the midst of the gratitude, the old village chief personally invited Tan Xiu and Tang Han to visit his house. A sumptuous dinner. Coupled with the wine brewed by the old village chief himself, Tan Xiu still drank a lot even though he was ready to leave early to patrol other remote places. Ring, 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 the ringtone of the communicator woke up the slightly drunk Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu took out his mobile phone and found that the call was from Gu Xiaoxue. He immediately answered and asked, "Xiaoxue, have you arrived?" "Grand Master, we have entered Mist Source Island. Where are you now?" "We'll rush over there immediately." Gu Xiaoxue's sweet voice came from the communicator. "Go directly to the central mountain of Mist Source Island," said Tan Xiu. "I'm in the village south of the central mountain. Contact me again when you come over." "All right." After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu immediately cancelled the idea of going to other places. Since Gu Xiaoxue and the rest had arrived, he would take them to the central mountain. It must be noted that the mountain was full of spiritual herbs, spirit fruits, and precious ores. They were the most scarce cultivation resources for the everlasting feast hall at present. In the evening, the sky was full of stars hanging in the night sky, and a cool breeze was blowing gently, bringing a cool and refreshing feeling to people. Tan Xiu stood on a large bluestone at the entrance of the village and looked up at the vast starry sky. He had been back on Earth for nearly a year and had experienced a lot of things. It was reasonable to say that he should be very satisfied. After all, he had relatives, friends, a career, and a confidant. Even his most concerned disciple, Gu Yan, had come here. But, at this moment, he was somewhat lost and even missed the days in the immortal world. Of course, what he missed the most were his several best friends. He wanted to stand in front of them and cut them alive. I will be kind to those who are kind to me. I will be evil to those who are evil to me. When I, Tan Xiu, set foot on the fertile land of the immortal world again, I will unleash a bloody storm. Those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. No one can rule the immortal world for hundreds of millions of years, so I will reign above the myriad races and break through the threshold of the immortal world. Tan Xiu clenched his fists, and his aura constantly surged. As he punched the void, layers of turbulent airflow caused ripples that spread in all directions. A kilometer away, more than a dozen cars quickly came. Gu Xiaoxue, who was sitting in the front car, could clearly see Tan Xiu standing on a tree. His seemingly thin figure looked particularly imposing at the moment. His handsome appearance was even more dashing at this moment. There was also his surging momentum and boundless domineering aura, as if he was the ruler of the world. Bam, bam, Gu Xiaoxue felt her heartbeat suddenly accelerate, and a lingering fear swayed in her heart. An indescribable emotion lingered around him, unable to get rid of it. Chapter 753. A cool breeze blew as the shadows of the trees swayed. Tan Xiu was keenly aware of the approaching vehicles. He trod on the air and walked to the ground step by step. As more than a dozen vehicles stopped in front of him, dozens of people got off and came before him. Tan Xiu's eyes then fell on the white-clothed, fairy-like Gu Xiaoxue. You've worked hard. Tan Xiu gently nodded with a smile on his handsome face. Gu Xiaoxue's eyes were particularly bright as she fixed her gaze on Tan Xiu's smile. Then, she intimately said, "It's not us who has worked hard, Grand Master. It's you who has." "How's Yen's situation?" Tan Xiu asked with a smile. "Did she tell you anything before you came here?" "Master told me to send her regards to you, Grand Master," said Gu Xiaoxue. "Also, she can leave the everlasting feast hall for the time being, but she can't stay for more than 2 days. So she's waiting for you. She said that she wants to go out with you after you go to Jingmen Island." 2 days. "I see," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Are we going to the mountain you mentioned now, Grand Master?" asked Gu Xiaoxue. "Or should we wait?" asked Gu Xiaoxue. Tan Xiu looked at the dozens of people standing respectfully behind Gu Xiaoxue. They didn't look tired, but were full of vigor instead. After pondering for a moment, Tan Xiu said, "Let's take a rest first. I'll take you to the mountain early tomorrow morning. That mountain is somewhat special and shrouded by an array. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to enter without my guidance." "We'll follow your arrangement, Grand Master." Gu Xiaoxue nodded. That night, Tan Xiu led everyone into the village. The courtyard occupied by the foreign forces was now unoccupied, so he didn't have to worry about living there. However, just as these people were settled down, Tang Han arrived in the darkness of the night. "Little brother, who are they?" Tang Han looked at Gu Xiaoxue and the dozens of people from the everlasting feast hall with a confused expression. "Big sis, let me introduce you." Tan Xiu said with a smile, "This is my grand disciple, Gu Xiaoxue. The rest are from the everlasting feast hall and are also my subordinates. You can treat them as your own people, the kind of people you can entrust your life to." The everlasting feast hall. Grand disciple? Tang Han looked at the beautiful Gu Xiaoxue with disbelief in her eyes. She knew about the everlasting feast hall. Its headquarters was in Jingmen Island, and she heard that the business there was quite good. However, his younger brother was only 21 years old. How did he have a grand disciple? Moreover, looking at the girl's appearance, she seemed to be 1 or 2 years older than him. Gu Xiaoxue didn't know Tang Han's identity, but when she heard Tan Xiu call her sister, she immediately said respectfully, "Greetings, Martial Aunt. I am Gu Xiaoxue." "Martial Aunt?" Tang Han didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she heard this form of address. She suddenly felt that it was ridiculous. After hesitating for a while, she hurriedly said, "Gu Xiaoxue, you don't need to call me martial aunt. I should be a few years older than you. If you don't mind, you can call me Big Sis, or Big Sis Han. I don't know why you call Tan Xiu Grand Master, but we're all modern people, so we can talk about our own things." This, Gu Xiaoxue was dumbfounded. She didn't expect that Tang Han would say such a thing. Subconsciously, she quickly glanced at Tan Xiu and shot him an inquiring look. Tan Xiu didn't care about the address, so he waved his hand and said, "Whatever you want to call each other, it's up to you." Tang Han pulled Gu Xiaoxue's hand and smilingly said, "See? Tan Xiu has no objection, so just listen to me. You can call me Big Sis or Big Sis Han. But if you call me martial aunt, you'll make me sound old." This, all right then. "Hello, Big Sis Han." Gu Xiaoxue braced herself and said. "Since we're on the same side, you don't need to be polite with me in the future," said Tang Han with a satisfied smile. "That's right, there's something I can't figure out. Why do you call Tan Xiu Grand Master?" "Because he's my master's master," said Gu Xiaoxue. "Your master's master?" asked Tang Han with a strange expression. "Your master is, my master is Gu Yan, said Gu Xiaoxue. "I was raised by my master. My master is my grand master's disciple, so he's naturally my grand master." Tang Han was a bit dizzy after hearing this theory. She realized that she couldn't ask anything from Gu Xiaoxue, so she immediately said to Tan Xiu, "Little brother, tell me, what's going on?" "Yan, is my disciple, and Xiaoxue is Yan, Er's disciple, so it's right for Xiaoxue to call me Grand Master," said Tan Xiu. "I have several disciples, some of whom are a bit older. Do you know the Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical?" "I do," said Tang Han immediately. The Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical is a large Chinese herbal medicine company in China, and its boss, Chen Zhizhong, is a very capable man. I've been to the inland many times, so I know some special people. Chen Zhizhong is also my disciple, though he's only my in-name disciple." Tan Xiu nodded. "His son is older than me, but he still calls me Grand Master." "Chen Zhizhong is your disciple?" asked Tang Han in surprise. "Heavens! What kind of ability do you have, little brother? You can even take Chen Zhizhong as your disciple?" "Didn't Grandpa tell you that I'm a cultivator?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. Tang Han stared blankly for a moment before she immediately shook her head. "Grandpa didn't tell me." "All right, since Grandpa didn't tell you, then I'll tell you now," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "If you also want to cultivate, big sister, I can teach you a cultivation technique so that you can have powerful strength." "I'll learn it," replied Tang Han without hesitation. Although she had been staying on Mist Source Island for many years, she was, after all, a member of the Tang family and knew some rumors. For example, cultivators were simply existences akin to immortals, yet they really existed in this world. It was just that she never expected that this younger brother of hers turned out to be a cultivator. "Little brother, since you're a cultivator, then, can you fly like the legends say?" asked Tang Han with a face full of expectation. "I'll naturally be able to fly when my cultivation reaches a certain level," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "However, flying requires the help of some minor spells, such as the most basic qi control art. Well, don't ask about it for now. You'll understand it when you become a cultivator and have powerful strength." "All right." Tang Han nodded with a look of expectation. Early in the next morning, Tan Xiu took Tang Han, Gu Xiaoxue, and dozens of members of the Everlasting Feast Hall to leave the village and rush toward the Misty Mountain. Since Tan Xiu had comprehended the array around the mountain, he easily brought everyone into the mountain. "Heavens! Is this place a fairyland?" Tang Han, who had never seen such a scene on the mountain, opened her mouth wide and looked shocked. Those towering trees were taller and bigger than the trees she had seen for hundreds of years. The size of those animals broke her impression of normality. Is that really a rabbit, little brother? Asked Tang Han incredulously as she looked at a rabbit the size of an adult yak. That's right. It's indeed a rabbit, said Tan Xiu with a smile. But if my guess is correct, that rabbit has lived for at least hundreds of years, maybe even more than a millennium. You can call it a rabbit demon. A rabbit demon? Tang Han's heart trembled and her footsteps instantly halted. Don't worry. Tan Xiu said with a smile. I've been to this mountain before and found that the animals here are very docile. They won't hurt you as long as you don't take the initiative to attack them. Only then did Tang Han feel relieved and sincerely exclaimed, I didn't expect you to be this powerful, little brother. You must know that countless people have tried every means to come here, yet they have never succeeded. I never thought that I would be able to come to this mountain one day. It will definitely cause a great uproar if anyone outside knows about this place. Big sis, don't tell anyone about coming to this mountain, said Tan Xiu quickly. Not even your trusted men. This mountain can be called a treasure mountain. Right now, only we can enter, so even if it is occupied by the Tang family, we will not be able to enter. Even if it's occupied by our Tang family, I'm afraid outsiders will flock here if they know about it. I understand. Don't worry. Tang Han solemnly nodded. Tan Xiu then looked at Gu Xiaoxue and the other members of the Everlasting Feast Hall and said in a deep voice, don't try to climb higher. This mountain is very strange. The higher you go, the stronger the pressure you will encounter. You may get injured if you try to go up by force. Alright, you can start now. Pay attention to your own safety and go all out to plunder the resources here. Our Everlasting Feast Hall needs them. Understood. Gu Xiaoxue and the others nodded. After frantically plundering, a huge number of spiritual herbs, spirit fruits, ores, and other resources were packed into 10 interspatial rings. These interspatial rings were refined by Ji Qimei in the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ. Tan Xiu stayed in the mountain for the whole morning and then left in a hurry, leaving everyone behind. After leaving the mountain, he immediately dialed Divine Dr. Gue Jianqiu's communicator. Ha ha ha. Tan Xiu, I knew you wouldn't be able to resist calling me. I'll tell you some good news. I've developed an antidote, and it's based on your previous experiment theory. I've finally found the right direction. I've already told Yang Chuxiong about the research data and the medicinal herbs that need to be mass-produced. He has already taken the military personnel to work on it. Have you tested it? Asked Tan Xiu. Can it really cure the infectious disease? All 30 patients have been cured, answered Gue Jianqiu. That's great. Tan Xiu was pleasantly surprised. Thank you so much, Divine Doctor. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to solve the darkening virus crisis. Anyways, I have something important to do now. I'll immediately rush back to the military base after I'm done with it. I'll treat you to a drink at that time. God's nectar. Gue Jianqiu smilingly said. No problem. God's nectar, I'll fill you up, said Tan Xiu happily. Ha ha ha, Gue Jianqiu laughed heartily. Chapter 754. The problem of the darkening virus had been solved, and Tan Xiu finally felt relieved. After returning to the central mountain, he escorted the people of the Everlasting Feast Hall while searching for precious resources. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. After 2 days of searching, a large number of precious medicinal herbs, spirit fruits, and 6 or 7 kinds of precious ores had been excavated. 6 of the 10 interspatial rings had been filled to the brim. According to Gu Xiaoxue, the resources obtained in these 2 days were enough for the Everlasting Feast Hall's normal consumption for 3 to 5 years. Tan Xiu was also in a very good mood. There were also various resources in his interspatial ring, but what made him the happiest was one of them, the Bell Spirit Stone Milk. This kind of Bell Spirit Stone Milk was definitely not an ordinary thing. A small mouthful of it could prolong an ordinary person's lifespan and be reborn. Tan Xiao was lucky enough to find a small spiritual vein in the crevice of the mountain stream. There was a narrow passage leading to the bottom of the spiritual vein. Although the amount of Bell Spirit stone milk he obtained was not much, it was still several kilograms. I'm out. Outside the white mist area, Tan Xiao looked at the direction of the billowing white mist with unconcealable joy in his eyes. He was getting more and more curious about Earth. It was simply unimaginable for such a small planet in the vast universe to have so many heavenly and earthly treasures. He had once encountered a treasured planet in the immortal world star field. Although it was full of treasures, it was slightly inferior compared to the good things on Earth. Tang Han smiled and looked at the billowing white mist with a bit of reluctance. She had taken a mouthful of the Bell Spirit stone milk and had been reborn. Not to mention that her cultivation had broken through to the martial arts grandmaster realm. Tan Xiao had taught her a set of cultivation technique, which had transformed the true qi inside her body into true essence. Once all of it was transformed into true essence, her strength would go up another level. It would be great if I could live here forever. Tang Han sighed from the bottom of her heart. Normal people will go crazy if they live here forever, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Alright, big sis. Just tell me in advance when you want to come here later. I'll bring you in again. Tang Han smiled and said, it's a deal. Tan Xiao looked at Gu Xiaoxue and the others and said, since we have searched the mountain range that can be climbed like a carpet, you can take everyone back. When our strength increases in the future, we can come back again and look for treasures at a higher place. Gu Xiaoxue asked curiously, Grand Master, haven't you settled everything here? The harm caused by the darkening virus has been solved, and those foreign forces have been driven out. Don't tell me you don't want to return to Jingmen Island with us. Tan Xiao shook his head and said, those things have been solved and my mission is considered completed, but I still need to stay here for some time. 2 days ago, I suggested to the commander of the garrison of Mist Source Island to set up a feng shui array around the island. This matter hasn't been done yet, so I can't leave for the time being. You're going to arrange a feng shui grand array that covers the entire Mist Source Island? Why is that? It's every citizen's duty to serve the country, Tan Xiao said with a smile. Of course, the country will provide a lot of jades, and I'll have the final say on how many jades are needed to arrange the array. Don't you think that you'd feel sorry for your hard work these days if you don't take this opportunity to make some money? The exceptionally intelligent Gu Xiaoxue instantly understood what kind of wishful thinking Tan Xiao had in mind. She couldn't help but laugh and said, you're really amazing, Grand Master. Tan Xiao didn't dwell on this topic and instead said, alright, you can go back now. I'll directly return to Jingmen Island after I'm done with the matters here. Understood. As Gu Xiaoxue left with her people, Tan Xiao came to the southern village where Mo, Au, and the others were waiting. Upon seeing Tan Xiao come back, they immediately showed relaxed smiles. However, what made Tan Xiao feel strange was that Shui Gui's face was bruised and swollen. He was also injured and his smile was a bit forced. What happened? Asked Tan Xiao while looking at Shui Gui. At the door of the house, Jinlei Duomo lazily played with the dagger in her hand. She then looked up and said, I did it. What happened? Tan Xiao frowned and stared blankly for a moment. Shui Gui and Jinlei Duomo had a match, boss. Mo All forced a smile and said, Shui Gui was badly beaten. He wanted to take revenge, but he endured it because of your order. Now that they have a match, Shui Gui knows that he's not Jinlei Duomo's match, so the depression in his heart has been alleviated a lot. Tan Xiao suddenly understood. He looked at the tangled Shui Gui and then at the indifferent Jinlei Duomo. He then nodded and said, that's all for now. I don't want to see you fight again. If you really want to fight to the death in the future, wait for me to break through the most important shackles. I'll be your witness then. Shui Gui turned his head and glared at Jinlei Duomo. Then, he respectfully said, I've thought it through, boss. If she's really like us, I'll give up on revenge. According to the rules of our everlasting feast hall, we must never fight against our own people. However, I need Jinlei Duomo to pay the price. Tan Xiu's expression moved as he looked at Jinlei Duomo and said, let me confirm it again. Are you really Yan Er's adopted child? You even got her inheritance? That's right, said Jinlei Duomo. After we arrive in Jingmen Island, once Yan has confirmed it, will you be willing to join the Everlasting Feast Hall? Asked Tan Xiu. I need to make it clear to you that once you join the Everlasting Feast Hall, you'll be a member of the Everlasting Feast Hall in the future. You'll be a member of the Everlasting Feast Hall in life and a ghost of the Everlasting Feast Hall in death. You must kill even those closest to you once they become enemies of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Jinlei Duomo's expression turned serious. After pondering for a long time, she slowly said, my life was given to me by her, and the achievements I have today are all thanks to her. She's my mother in my heart. So, I'll do whatever she asks me to do. If she agrees to let you join the Everlasting Feast Hall, then you'll have to compensate Shui Gui with a year's allocation of resources. Do you have any objection? Asked Tan Xiu. Allocation of resources? Jinlei Duomo thought about it and felt that it should be the monetary salary she could get as a member of the Everlasting Feast Hall. She was not short of money and was even a billionaire, so she nodded and said, since this hatred can be resolved, I naturally have no problem with it. Do you agree? Tan Xiu looked at Shui Gui and asked. I agree. Shui Gui nodded without a word. Since it's settled, then let's write off all the previous grievances. Tan Xiu nodded and smilingly said, after all, you both belong to different camps. After all, it's hard to say who's right and who's wrong since you both belong to different camps. Shortly put, I hope you can become brothers and sisters who fight side by side in the future, not enemies. Understood. Shui Gui nodded solemnly. Jinlei Duomo raised her hand indifferently and agreed with Tan Xiu's words. As a matter of fact, she had no interest in joining the Everlasting Feast Hall. In her opinion, apart from Tan Xiu and herself, no one else in the Everlasting Feast Hall could be her opponent. Joining such a force was fine, but it couldn't restrain her. The infectious disease problem has been solved and the foreign forces have been driven out. Tan Xiu smilingly said, there's only one thing left for us to do. There is only one thing left for us to do, and that is to follow me to arrange a feng shui grand array on the periphery of Mist Source Island. After arranging the array, we'll go directly to Jingmen Island. Suddenly, he seemed to recall something and asked, how's the security problem in Mist Source Island these days? We killed some people, which played a very good deterrent role, said Moo. The antidote for the darkening virus has been researched, which is like giving the residents of Mist Source Island a reassurance pill, so the security problem has been solved. Also, the antidote is being produced on a large scale. The military and government personnel have taken the antidote, and the police have taken over the normal order. Jean Sure grinned and said, you're famous again, boss. Now, everyone in the entire Mist Source Island knows of your great name, and they are all deeply grateful to you, wishing that they could worship you. What do you mean? Tan Xiu stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression. What do you mean? Jean Sure smilingly said, the antidote developed by Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu was originally based on the research idea you provided before, which finally led to the current result. Therefore, when Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu was interviewed by the media, he emphasized that you're actually the great contributor to the development of the antidote. Tan Xiu was dumbfounded. He never thought that Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu would directly push him to the front of the stage. Although it was his responsibility to solve the problem in Mist Source Island, he never thought that he would be in the limelight. Forget it. I'll arrange the feng shui array and leave immediately after a large number of jades are delivered. Even if I become famous here, it won't affect me in the future. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and immediately relaxed. Standing next to Tan Xiu, Tang Han suddenly asked, little brother, will our relationship be exposed if you go back to the Tang Manor Martial School with me now? It will be. Tan Xiu was well aware of the power of the media. Since he had become a household name now, he believed that the media would soon learn about him once he appeared in the Tang Manor Martial School. If they were to dig deeper, they might even dig out the fact that he had been to the Tang Manor Martial School. "Big sis, we won't be going to the Tang Manor Martial School for the time being. Just contact me directly through the communicator if you want to see me in the next few days. Let's have a meal together when I leave. Also, I'll find a way to help you get a pass to freely enter and exit Mist Source Island. You can look for me outside whenever you miss me." Although Tang Han wanted to spend more time with Tan Xiu, she was perfectly aware of her mission, so she nodded and said, "If that's the case, then I'll take my leave first. Remember to tell me when you're about to leave. Big sis will cook a meal for you." "All right." Chapter 755. In the evening, Tan Xiu, Moo, and the others came to the military base on Mist Source Island. He learned that Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu was supervising the production of the antidote for the darkening virus, so he didn't disturb him. As Yang Chuxiong hurried over, the two entered a conference room. "Mr. Tang, the #1 leader has agreed to your plan. The state is now collecting a lot of jades and will send them to Mist Source Island in the near future." Yang Chuxiong was very excited. Once the array was set up, the entire Mist Source Island would be like an impregnable fortress, and there would be no need to worry about outsiders sneaking in. "How long will it take?" asked Tan Xiu. The leader said that the state has a batch of jades that can be sent immediately, but the quantity is only about 5 tons, said Yang Chuxiong. "If it's not enough, more jades will be sent later. But the leader doesn't know how much jades you need, so he asked me to ask you." 5 tons? Tan Xiu's mouth twitched a few times, and his heart was filled with excitement. It must be noted that even if the entire Mist Source Island was covered with an array, it would probably require less than a ton of jades. But the state actually sent 5 tons in the first batch. Wouldn't he be able to keep the rest for himself? It's a big profit. Tan Xiu was excited inwardly, but he didn't show it on the surface. Instead, he deliberately furrowed his brows and slowly shook his head. 5 tons of jades are not enough. You must know that Mist Source Island is very large, and the amount of jades needed is also very large. It's at least 15 tons. Yang Chuxiong thought for a while and nodded. 15 tons of jades is not a lot. The jade mines in our country can produce a lot of jades every year, but most of them are in the hands of private bosses, so the state needs to spend some time to buy them. Let's wait. All the jades should be sent here in 10 days to half a month. All right. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction. Tan Xiu had dinner with Yang Chuxiong. When Divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu learned that Tan Xiu had returned to the military base, he also rushed over and had a drink with Tan Xiu. When Miracle Dr. Gui Jianqiu was about to leave the military base, Tan Xiu gave him 2 boxes of God's nectar, making him praise Tan Xiu for being sensible. Yang Chuxiong also got some benefits. He also got 2 boxes of God's nectar. Of course, he didn't get it for free either. Yang Chuxiong made up a lie and helped Tang Han get a military pass. Even if the Feng Shui formation was set up, Tang Han would have the right to come and go as she pleased. Late at night, Tan Xiu was sitting cross-legged in cultivation when someone knocked on his door. Moo's voice came from outside. "Boss, someone from the mainland has come." "It's the lady boss, Mu Weining." "Lady boss?" Tan Xiu smiled bitterly in his heart. He opened the door and asked, "Where is she?" "Jin Shi has taken him to the barracks and is now on the way here," said Moo. "He should be here in a few minutes." Tan Xiu nodded and went back to his room to put on his coat. Just as he came to the entrance of the 2-story building, he saw Mu Weining and 4 middle-aged men and women following behind Jin Shi as they came down from 2 military jeeps. Tan Xiu. Mu Weining was very excited to see Tan Xiu. She had been so busy recently because Tan Xiu had introduced a lot of businesses to her. During this period, she only called Tan Xiu a few times. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, "You've been working hard all the way here. Have a good rest tonight. I'll take you to the Qingyuan group tomorrow. Mu Weining gently nodded and came to Tan Xiu. She restrained the urge to hug him, but still held Tan Xiu's arm and affectionately said, I miss you. I miss you very much. Tan Xiu smiled and gently hugged her shoulder. After turning around and returning to the small building, he ordered Mo to contact the management staff to arrange accommodation for the 4 people brought by Mu Weining. Then, he took Mu Weining to the second floor. Is this your first time here? After entering the room, Tan Xiu took off his coat and asked with a smile. It's my first time. Mu Weining nodded. I've heard my dad mention it a few times before. I really didn't expect that the scenery on Mist Source Island would be so beautiful. If it weren't for the fact that I still have a lot of things to do outside, I would have thought of settling down here. The environment here is really good. At least, the air here is many times better than Shanghai. Tan Xiu smiled. If you like it here, you can buy a house here later. You can come here for a vacation and relax when you want to come here. Alright. You can accompany me. Mu Weining said with a smile. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, I'll accompany you if I have time in the future. Afterward, the two of them chatted about some recent events. Finally, Mu Weining said with a bit of worry, my dad has learned about the Qingyuan group situation, and he's very angry. Especially when he learned that you solved the Qingyuan group's problem. What do you think about it then? Tan Xiu smiled. I understand what you're thinking about. Mu Weining smiled. My dad has indeed gone too far these years. Now that I've invested in the Qingyuan group and own 25% of its shares, my dad's income will be stuck with me in the future. Don't worry about it. If my dad needs money in the future, he won't dare to show any objection to you. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, if your dad knows what you're thinking about, I'm afraid he'll be so angry that his nose will be crooked. It's said that a grown girl can't be kept at home, so he must think so. Mu Weining was a bit shy, but she still said, a married daughter is like water that has been poured out. Although I'll be filial to him, I can't let him do whatever he wants. My mom has suffered a lot of grievances all these years, and I can't let you suffer the same. It seems that I'm really happy to have a girlfriend like you, Tan Xiu said with a smile. Mu Weining used to be very reserved, and coupled with her indifferent personality, she looked more gentle and virtuous, like a fairy who didn't eat the common food of the world. But at this moment, an inexplicable impulse emerged inside her heart and she said, marry me early if you feel happy. Ugh, Tan Xiu was stumped by her words for a long time and couldn't speak. He let out a hollow laugh a few times and then said, we're still too young, not even the legal age for marriage. Besides, we're still students. Let's wait until we graduate from college. We'll get married after we graduate. Mu Weining said softly. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly, but there was a bit of a smile on his face as he said, no problem. That night, Mu Weining stayed in Tan Xiu's room to rest, while Tan Xiu cultivated the whole night. The next day, he was still in high spirits as he rushed to the Qingyuan group with Mu Weining. After solving the stock issue, he sent Mu Weining away and then returned to the military base. He waited for 2 days. 5 tons of good quality jades were delivered. When Tan Xiu looked at these jades, his eyes shone. When he participated in the stone gambling meet in Star City, he spent a lot of money to buy a little bit of jades. But now, he could get more than 100 times more jades by just moving his lips and working a bit harder. This kind of comfortable feeling made his mood very good. What do you think of these jades, Mr. Tang? Yang Chuxiong, who accompanied Tan Xiu, looked at the jades in the container truck and asked. The quality is very good, Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and said, it's no problem to arrange a feng shui array. However, I still need to urge Division Commander Yang to arrange the array as soon as possible so that I can go back earlier. Don't worry. Yang Chuxiong said. No one dared to neglect the order since it was issued by the number 1 leader. I just got the news that all the jades needed can be transported to Mist Source Island in 5 days at most. So, when do you think we can arrange the array? I need to personally survey the surrounding terrain of Mist Source Island in the next few days, said Tan Xiu. Then I'll start immediately. I'll take these jades with me and bury them in a specific location. If all the jades can be delivered within 5 days, I can arrange the array in half a month at most. No problem, said Yang Chuxiong excitedly. Time fleeted by and a week passed in the blink of an eye. Tan Xiu had obtained 15 tons of good quality jades. After on-site investigation, he finally determined that the amount of jades needed for the array was less than a ton. Therefore, the remaining 14 tons of jades were naturally pocketed by him and taken for himself. Arranging the array around the entire Mist Source Island was definitely not a small project. But with the help of Mo Ao and the others, Tan Xiu's arrangement speed was very fast. He buried all the jades in the 36 important foundations around Mist Source Island. Boss, a leader from the Mist Source Island government just called and said that he wants to see you. The reporters from the Mist Source Island TV station also want to interview you. How should I reply to them? Mo Ao came to Tan Xiu and asked in a low voice. Tan Xiu looked at the white mist in the distance and said without hesitation, reject them all. Just say that I'm busy with important things and have no time to accept the interview, let alone see them. Tell them to find Yang Chuxiong if they have something they want to know. Mo Ao complied and left with the communicator. Time passed quickly again. On the 13th day after all the jades were delivered, Tan Xiu finally arranged the entire array. The array he arranged was also known as the interlocking array. On one hand, it could be used for defense and on the other hand, it could also be used for offense. On the southern coastline of Mist Source Island, thousands of military soldiers had sealed off the entire area within a radius of more than 10 kilometers. No one could leave Mist Source Island for the time being, nor could they come in from the outside. Yang Chuxiong stood beside Tan Xiu and looked at the two 18-meter-high pillars, his mind shrouded in mist. He wanted to ask Tan Xiu several times about why he arranged these two pillars here, but after seeing the solemn expression on Tan Xiu's face, he understood that it was not convenient for Tan Xiu to be disturbed. It's almost time. Tan Xiu immediately looked at Yang Chuxiong and said as the sun set in the west and was blocked by the white mist in the distance. What's almost time? Asked Yang Chuxiong, confused. It's almost time to witness a miracle, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Division Commander Yang, tell your military soldiers to withdraw 5 kilometers. Chapter 756. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, Yang Chuxiong immediately realized that the array was about to be successfully arranged. Full of excitement, he quickly issued an order to withdraw the troops. Mr. Tang, we've withdrawn 5 kilometers. A smile was outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. As he lifted his feet, it was as if there was an invisible staircase in front of him as he walked step by step through the void to the coastline more than 10 meters high. Heavens! What did I just see? Yang Chuxiong's heart was pounding and his eyes were as big as copper bells. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed that someone could walk on the void. Was he still a human? Suddenly, Yang Chuxiong realized why this young man, whom he had once despised, was sent by the country's #1 leader to solve the crisis on Mist Source Island. He was simply a celestial being. Tan Xiu didn't know how shocked Yang Chuxiong was, nor did he have the time to care about it. His eyes looked around and then slowly spread his arms. A surging aura instantly erupted from his body. Even though Yang Chuxiong was used to seeing the big shots in the country, he was still startled by the surging aura coming from Tan Xiu. At this moment, Tan Xiu gave him the feeling that a towering mountain suddenly appeared in front of him. Activate the array. A deep voice came out of Tan Xiu's mouth. Waves of primal chaos force were released from his hands and instantly fused into the array pattern of the void array. In an instant, a layer of airflow ripples appeared out of thin air. Ancient characters that had experienced the vicissitudes of life loomed in the ripples and then spread to both sides at a very fast speed. 10 minutes passed. Tan Xiu's body suddenly trembled and his complexion turned pale. He quickly swooped down and appeared in front of Yang Chuxiong in the blink of an eye. The moment his feet touched the ground, his legs gave way and he staggered 2 steps forward. Mo Ao, who had sharp eyes and quick hands, caught him. "Boss," Mo Ao called out with a worried look on his face. Tan Xiu raised his arm and shook his head. "I'm fine. I just consumed too much power. I'll be fine after resting for 2 days. This Mist Source Island is too big, and it takes a lot of energy to activate the entire array. Looks like my current cultivation is still not enough." Mo Ao, on the other hand, looked at him with admiration and said, "Your cultivation is improving rapidly, boss. I believe it won't be long before you reach a higher level." Tan Xiu faintly smiled. Then, he looked at the dumbfounded Yang Chuxiong and said, "I've completed my task, Division Commander Yang. The entire array has been activated. The distance between these 2 pillars is 24 meters, which is also the entrance to Mist Source Island. I'll tell you how to open the entrance. As for who you'll send to guard this place, it has nothing to do with me. Also, you know where the exit is, so I'll leave the rest to you." Yang Chuxiong watched as the rippling airflow slowly dissipated and returned to its original state. Only then did he sober up from the shock. He looked at Tan Xiu and said, "I'll arrange it, Mr. Tang." The next day, Tan Xiu left Mist Source Island with Mo Ao and the others. Although the chaos force within his body had recovered by less than 50%, the feeling of weakness had completely disappeared. Standing on the bow deck, he looked at the vast sea in front of him with a complicated expression. He recalled the moment when he left the Tang Manor Martial Arts School last night. Tang Han's tearful and reluctant appearance was all over his face. At this moment, he was even considering whether he should return to the mainland and talk to the old man about Mist Source Island. The present Tang family was no longer the Tang family of the past. As long as he was alive, the Tang family would be safe and sound. Moreover, the 9 Dragons Island would be completed in a few months at most. Once the island could be used, the Tang family's biggest escape route would be 9 Dragons Island. "Shall we go to Jingmen Island directly, Mr. Tang?" Jinlei Duomo, clad in a black leather coat, came to Tan Xiu's side and asked. Tan Xiu glanced at her and indifferently said, "We're going to Jingmen Island." "Will I be able to see her soon?" asked Jinlei Duomo quickly. Tan Xiu didn't rush to answer and instead asked, "Jinlei Duomo, what do you think people live for? If you had more power, what would you do?" Jinlei Duomo stared blankly and immediately fell into silence. "What do people live for? For happiness and happiness. What else can I do if I have more power? Money? Rights?" Jinlei Duomo was silent for a long time. Then, she shook her head and said with a blank expression, "I don't know. I only know that I want to live, and I want to live a better life. Given your current strength, not many people can take your life if you don't want to die," Tan Xiu asked back. "Besides, you're now at the foundation establishment stage and your lifespan is much longer than ordinary people. Don't you have any pursuits after living for such a long time?" "What pursuits do you have?" asked Jinlei Duomo. "Me?" A strange expression appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he slowly said, "I'm afraid my pursuits are a bit higher than yours. I want to live as long as the heaven and earth, and I want to stand above the myriad races. Maybe one day in the future, I'll become a god and go to the legendary god realm." "Becoming a god? God realm?" A sneer appeared on Jinlei Duomo's face. She didn't believe that gods and immortals existed in this world. In her opinion, if gods and immortals really existed, the earth wouldn't be like this now. Therefore, she thought that Tan Xiu was just indulging in a whimsical and boring fantasy. Tan Xiu was keenly aware of the sneer on Jinlei Duomo's face. He indifferently smiled and said, "Now it's your turn. What do you want to do in the future?" Jinlei Duomo took a deep breath and said, "I want to be the godfather of all the gangs in the world." Cough, cough, Tan Xiao nearly choked to death upon hearing her words. The godfather of gangs? That's all you've got? It was really hard for him to imagine that a cultivator with monstrous cultivation would become the godfather of gangs. Most importantly, she's a woman. Tan Xiao was really unable to ridicule Zhenlei Duomo's dream. He turned straight back to the cabin and waited for the liner to arrive at Jingmen Island. Coming to Mist Source Island this time could be said to be a fruitful harvest. At least, he wouldn't have to worry about cultivation resources for a long time in the future. Even more so. He was confident that it wouldn't be long before he could break through again and reach a higher level. Furthermore, once his disciple, Gu Yan, recovered her strength, he would definitely be able to walk unhindered on Earth. 4:00 in the afternoon. The liner stopped on the shore of Jingmen Island. Just as Tan Xiao came out of the cabin, he saw Gu Yan, standing gracefully on the shore. Her white dress fluttered in the wind, making her look like a pure and clean fairy maiden. Her breathtakingly beautiful face was full of excitement. Whoosh! A lightning-fast figure instantly rushed out from behind Tan Xiao. In almost the blink of an eye, Zhenlei Duomo appeared in front of Gu Yan. You, Zhenlei Duomo looked at Gu Yan'er in disbelief. Gu Yan'er's peerless appearance had long been engraved in her heart. But what she couldn't believe was that Gu Yan'er's appearance hadn't changed in the slightest after more than 20 years. She was still so beautiful and young. Gu Yan'er's eyes reluctantly moved away from Tan Xiao and fell on Zhenlei Duomo's face. She slightly froze for a moment before her eyes widened and said in surprise, "You're little Duomo." Tears overflowed from Zhenlei Duomo's eyes. She bit her lower lip with her white teeth and said with a trembling voice, "It's really you. I'm not dreaming. You're still so young and beautiful. I didn't expect to see you again after so many years," Gu Yan said with a gratified smile. "You've grown up, little Duomo." Zhenlei Duomo's voice trembled. "You didn't let me come to China at that time. I've endured it countless times and dreamed to see you again. Can you let me call you mother? Because you're my mother in my heart." Mother? Gu Yan'er was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. She wasn't married, so how could she have a child? Besides, she had raised too many children, more than 100 in total. If everyone called her mother, wouldn't she become the woman with the most children? "Call me master." Gu Yan'er subconsciously looked at Tan Xiao, who had already approached her, and then slowly said. She could have children, but her children must be her own, and the most important thing was to have children with him. Zhenlei Duomo knew what the word master meant, so she knelt in front of Gu Yan'er without hesitation and kowtowed 3 times. Only then did she get up and said, "Master, you won't abandon me again, right? I had something important to do back then, so I made up an excuse to leave you abroad." Gu Yan'er sighed. "Later, because of my physical condition, I let you wander outside. But how did you come back with your Grand Master?" "Grand Master?" Zhenlei Duomo looked at Tan Xiao and was surprised. "Are you talking about him, Master?" "Don't be rude, little Duomo," said Gu Yan immediately. "He's my master, so he's naturally your Grand Master." Zhenlei Duomo incredulously said, "But Master, his age." "Ugh, I know I'm wrong. Hello, Grand Master. You want to ask me why I'm so young, right?" Tan Xiao lightly smiled. "Ha ha ha. I do look very young, but look at your master. Isn't she also very young?" In fact, once a cultivator's cultivation reaches a high level, the changes in their appearance will slow down and they can even stay young forever. Zhenlei Duomo was shocked. As a woman, how could she not want to stay young forever? For a moment, her eyes were particularly bright. Gu Yan'er looked at Tan Xiao again. She gently walked a few steps and opened her arms to gently hug Tan Xiao, saying, "Master, Yan'er misses you." Tan Xiao was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. "Yan'er, there are so many people watching. Besides, your disciple is also here. I've lived for thousands of years, What kind of things have I not experienced? Gu Yan gently shook her head. Master is the most important person in my heart. I miss you, and I really miss you. I don't need to hide it in front of anyone. Chapter 757. Tan Xiu felt warm inwardly. He gently patted her back and smilingly said, Since you miss me, Master will stay on Jingmen Island for a while to accompany you. Let's go. Gu Yan released Tan Xiu and happily held Tan Xiu's arm. In her eyes, whether it was Jinlei Duomo or the others she had trained, all of them were not as important as her master, Tan Xiu. The only reason why she could survive until now was because of Tan Xiu. 100 meters away. Dozens of men and women in black suits and sunglasses stood in front of a row of black cars. Although there were a lot of onlookers around, they could only stop hundreds of meters away. Jinlei Duomo followed behind Gu Yan and Tang Xiu. When she saw the dozens of people, she saw some familiar faces among them, causing her pupils to suddenly contract and her muscles to tense up. She was also a ruthless character who had gone through fire and water countless times abroad. She had fought with many people on the battlefield and climbed up from piles of corpses. Those familiar faces were similar to her. Each of them was a powerhouse who had survived from piles of corpses. However, she couldn't figure out why these people would appear here. Jinlei Duomo slowed down her pace and asked in a low voice, Why are the Dark Knight Overlord, Bloodthirsty Viper, and Golden Bat here? Are they the same as you, people of the Everlasting Feast Hall? And all of them are cultivators? Well, there's no harm in telling you since you're already one of us, said Mo indifferently. They are indeed people of the Everlasting Feast Hall and core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Not only the three of them, but also the others. Jinlei Duomo's body trembled and a horrified expression filled her eyes. She was originally surprised that the Everlasting Feast Hall only had 11 cultivators, including Mo, and all of them were Tan Xiu's men. Now, it seemed that he was ridiculously wrong. Just over 20 years ago, his master, Gu Yan, was already powerful and invincible, and belonged to the Everlasting Feast Hall. And now, dozens of powerful cultivators suddenly appeared. What kind of terrifying power did the Everlasting Feast Hall possess? Brother All, how many cultivators does the Everlasting Feast Hall have? Could it be that every one of them is as powerful as you? A smile outlined on the corner of Mo All's mouth as he said, Even I don't know how many cultivators the Everlasting Feast Hall has. Perhaps the person who knows it the best is Little Boss. However, Little Boss didn't seem to be here. But they should be here. Who are they? Jinlei Duomo was confused. Your luck is very good, said Mo All. We were all very envious that he was accepted as a disciple by the previous boss. They are your senior brothers and sisters. Do you see the only one wearing white clothes over there? He is light. Since he appeared here, darkness must be nearby. Are they very powerful? Jinlei Duomo asked curiously. There's a big gap between us and them, said Mo All seriously. Even you are far inferior to them. Jinlei Duomo fell into silence. She was not an arrogant and conceited woman. On the contrary, she was very smart. Although she hadn't known Mo All for a long time, she could see that he was not the kind of person who would talk nonsense. Since he could be sure that the other party was stronger than her, it was unlikely that he was wrong. The Everlasting Feast Hall. Jinlei Duomo's expression was a bit complicated. She felt more and more that the Everlasting Feast Hall had a terrifying power that was unfathomable. However, the only fortunate thing was that she had successfully joined the Everlasting Feast Hall. Suddenly, she seemed to recall something and quickly asked, Brother All, when we were in Mist Source Island, Grand Master said that he would compensate Shui Gue with a year's worth of resources. How much money can the Everlasting Feast Hall give us a year? Money? Mo All looked at her with a strange expression and said, Money doesn't mean much to the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall. It's actually very easy for us to get money if we want it. The Everlasting Feast Hall's resource allocation is, in fact, elixirs, weapons, magical techniques, and any other cultivation resources that are helpful to cultivators. If the Everlasting Feast Hall doesn't allocate these resources, it's impossible to buy them even if you have trillions of wealth. As for the quantity, it's not a lot. But if we buy them ourselves, we'll need about 1 billion. Aren't we not allowed to buy them? Asked Jinlei Duomo, confused. Outsiders can't buy them, but our core members can, said Moo. It's just that the form of purchase is different. For example, elixirs that are helpful to cultivation. Refining elixirs requires a lot of medicinal herbs, so we can spend money to buy those herbs and exchange them for elixirs. Jinlei Duomo immediately understood, but she still asked, elixirs are helpful to our cultivation? Let me give you an example. You've broken through to the foundation establishment stage, but you should still be at the early stage. The most suitable elixir for you now is the essence amassing pill, said Moo. Taking an essence amassing pill can reduce your cultivation time by about 5 years. In other words, if you want to break through from the early stage to the middle stage of foundation establishment stage, you'll need 10 years. But if you take an essence amassing pill, you'll only need 5 years to break through to the middle stage of foundation establishment stage. Gasp! Jinlei Duomo sucked in a breath of cold air. She was shocked by Moo's description. This kind of elixir was the same as the legendary elixir from the East. Jinlei Duomo quickly glanced at the indifferent expression on Shui Gui's face. Regret filled her heart. Had she known that the Everlasting Feast Hall would distribute such good resources, how could she have easily agreed to use a year's quota to resolve the enmity with Shui Gui? Jingmen Island, Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ. As soon as Tan Xiu got off the car, he smelled the fragrance of medicinal herbs in the air. He looked inside and curiously asked, "Is Ji Qimei refining elixirs?" Ever since Xiaoxue came back from Mist Source Island with a lot of precious medicinal herbs, Elder Ji has been refining elixirs in her alchemy room. Gu Yan chuckled. Originally, the number of elixirs in our treasure vault was very small, but it's now more than enough after she's been refining elixirs. I've seen those medicinal herbs, and their quality is very good. Even in the immortal world, there are several of them that are hard to get. Our Everlasting Feast Hall shouldn't be lacking elixirs in the next few years. That's good news, Tan Xiu nodded and smilingly said. Shortly after, the duo then chatted about a lot of topics, including Jinlei Duomo's matter. When Gu Yan learned that Jinlei Duomo had become the second in command of a foreign gang, she was at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh. Master, Grand Master. Dressed in a white dress, Gu Xiaoxue came before Gu Yan and Tan Xiu and respectfully greeted them. Xiaoxue, how's Elder Ji's elixir refining going? Asked Gu Yan with a smile. Has she refined the soul revolving pill that I asked her to? Gu Xiaoxue stretched out her hand and handed over a jade bottle. It's been refined, but the quantity is very small, only 2 in total. Elder Ji said that the medicinal herbs needed to refine the 9 Revolutions soul pill are too rare, so she can only refine these 2 at most. It's already a lot to be able to refine 2 of them, said Gu Yan with a satisfied smile. Master, take this 9 Revolutions soul pill as soon as possible. This 9 Revolutions soul pill will be very helpful to you given your current cultivation level. Tan Xiu took the jade bottle, unplugged the cork and sniffed it. He then nodded and praised, it's indeed the 9 Revolutions soul pill. Countless immortals in the immortal world want to get this kind of elixir, yet I didn't expect it to appear on Earth. However, I can't take it for the time being because my cultivation level is still too low. Taking this 9 Revolutions soul pill will not only bring me no benefits, but will also bring me some hidden dangers instead. Hidden dangers? Why? Asked Gu Yan with a puzzled expression. If I take the 9 Revolutions soul pill now, I'll need to go into seclusion for at least several years to fully absorb its medicinal efficacy, said Tan Xiu with a wry smile. Else, my body may explode due to the huge medicinal efficacy it contains. Gu Yan stared blankly for a moment before she immediately understood and said, "You haven't cultivated your golden core yet, master. I really want to see you become stronger, so Tan Xiu interrupted her and said, "My current cultivation path is different from ordinary cultivators. To be precise, I'm now a devil cultivator." Devil cultivator? But you don't have any devil chi on you, master? Asked Gu Yan, puzzled. Do you still remember the heavenly art of cosmic genesis? Asked Tan Xiu lightly. Gu Yan's eyes widened and said, "That made you change to another cultivation technique? I remember rumors saying that ordinary immortals can't cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, right? Cultivating the heavenly art of cosmic genesis requires extremely harsh conditions." Tan Xiu nodded. "And I happen to be suitable. If it were me in the past, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to cultivate it." Gu Yan suddenly understood and smilingly said, "Master, if you change to another cultivation technique, I believe it will be much better than your previous one." Yan can't wait to see Master return to being a supreme in the immortal world again. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and no longer talked about this topic. Whether it was Tan Xiu or Gu Yan, they didn't plan to tell Zhenlei Duomo about the existence of the exquisite pagoda for the time being. As Zhenlei Duomo was arranged elsewhere, Tan Xiu and Gu Yan came to the exquisite pagoda. The days spent together as master and disciple were relaxed and happy. However, when a visiting card was sent to Tan Xiu's hand, Tan Xiu suddenly remembered something. He had yet to give Li Juren the medicinal pill he had promised him. He hadn't even refined it yet. Afterward, Tan Xiu entered Ji Qimei's alchemy room and began to crazily refine the medicinal pill. After the life essence pill was finished, Tan Xiu didn't go to see Li Juren but sent someone to deliver it to him. Just as Tan Xiu got a lot of money and was in a very good mood, a phone call came to his cell phone. "See you tomorrow night in Jingmen Island." Chapter 758. A smile appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he hung up the phone. He had received a call from the old man on his way back from Mist Source Island, informing him that a special big shot wanted to see him. He didn't expect that the old man would call him now and suddenly want to meet him tomorrow. Others might not know the identity of that person, but he was very clear about it. He was someone who controlled a large number of ability users in the country. Although he didn't have a high and mighty identity on the surface, the power he had was not small. However, there was one thing he couldn't figure out. Why did he send a Chinese ability user to solve the problem of Mist Source Island? Tomorrow's meeting must not be at the Everlasting Feast Hall because its existence is still a secret to many people. Also, the old man should have received the news, but I don't know if he will come with me. Sure enough. A few minutes later, his mobile phone rang. It was a call from the old man, Tang Guosheng. The old man told him that he would accompany that big shot to Jingmen Island tomorrow and that he would stay at the Guomao Hotel. As for when he would meet him, he would wait for further notice. After the call, Tang Xiu put this matter to the back of his mind. He would deal with tomorrow's matter tomorrow. He still had a lot of precious medicinal herbs in his interspatial ring. Taking advantage of the time he had in Jingmen Island, he wanted to seize every minute and second to refine a batch of medicinal pills in case of emergency. The next evening, Tan Xiu was refining a furnace of essence amassing pills when Gu Xiaoxue hurriedly came in from the outside with his mobile phone and respectfully said, "Your grandfather is calling, Grand Master." Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows and said, "I'm at a critical moment in my alchemy, so it's not convenient for me to be distracted for the time being. Tell him to wait for me for 2 or 3 hours. I'll call him back after I'm done with my work." Understood. Gu Xiaoxue replied and turned to walk outside. Jingmen Island. Inside the presidential suite of the World Trade Hotel, Tang Guosheng hung up the phone with an embarrassed expression. He looked at Duan Mulin, who was still in high spirits and had a ruddy complexion. He forced a smile and said, "That little bastard's wings have hardened. He doesn't even want to pick up my call in time. His grand disciple just told me that he's at a critical moment in refining a furnace of medicinal pills. I'm afraid it will take him 2 or 3 hours to finish. Alchemy? Duan Mulin's spirit was shaken, and he said without hesitation, refining pills is an important matter, naturally I can't easily disturb you. Let's just wait. Tang Guisheng looked puzzled and asked, I really don't get it. Why did you come all the way to Jingmen Island? If you want to see him, tell him to go to the imperial capital. I believe that if he knew that you were the one who asked him to go, he would definitely rush over without stopping. Duan Mulin smiled and said, I need to show my sincerity. Sincerity? What do you mean? Tang Guisheng asked again. Duan Mulin smiled and said, I met him personally because I wanted to ask for a pill. Tang Guisheng frowned and said, asking for pills? Do you still want to live forever? Duan Mulin shook his head and said, I don't dare to think about immortality, but I can still live for a few more years. According to a reliable source, Old Man Li from Hong Kong had obtained 10 life essence pills. I heard from the old woman living in seclusion in the imperial capital that the life essence pill can increase one's lifespan. Even if one's lifespan is exhausted, it can still buy a few more years from the Grim Reaper. Although that old woman said that I can live for at least 10 more years, getting a life essence pill can be considered as a precaution. Tang Guisheng's complexion greatly changed. He never dreamed that his grandson could actually refine a life essence pill that could increase one's lifespan. Every moment in the country, there were old people passing away due to the exhaustion of their lifespan. Even big shots like him, who held great power, would not be an exception in the future. Suddenly, a strange light flashed in Tang Guisheng's eyes. No wonder this person spared no effort to rush all the way to Jingmen Island to see my grandson. It turns out that he has something to ask of me. Ha ha ha. This is great. Even if my precious grandson doesn't take this opportunity to fish for benefits, I believe this person will not treat him unfairly. Even my Tang family, Tang Guisheng was very happy inwardly. If it weren't for this person in front of him, he would have looked up to the sky and laughed heartily. At midnight, Tan Xiu hurried to the World Trade Hotel. Although Duan Mulin came quietly, the security was still very tight. After several identity checks and Duan Mulin's order, Tan Xiu smoothly arrived at the presidential suite. You brat, you're too good at putting on airs. Making us old people wait until now is really annoying. Although Tang Guisheng was very excited and satisfied to see his grandson, he still deliberately reprimanded him with a straight face. Duan Mulin smiled and waved his hand. Old Tang, it's good for young people to have some things to do. You don't need to lecture this kid. He's very good. He's really very good. The matter in Mist Source Island was solved very well. I was just organizing my words to praise him. A smile appeared on Tang Guisheng's face as he pointed to Duan Mulin and said, This is Duan Mulin. You can call him Grandpa Duanmu. Tan Xiu looked at Duan Mulin and smilingly said, Tan Xiu is flattered that you came to Jingmen Island from thousands of miles away. There are only a few people in the country who deserve my respect, but you're definitely one of them. Duan Mulin smiled and said, Not bad. I just found another good point of yours. You know how to flatter. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing. He didn't have any restraint in front of Duan Mulin. However, he was, after all, a big shot nowadays, so Tan Xiu didn't want to be too casual. He humbly said a few words and then asked, You didn't come to Jingmen Island just to praise me, did you? Is there something else? After Tan Xiu entered the room, Duan Mulin smelled the herbal medicine scent coming from Tan Xiu's body. Therefore, it could be said that Tan Xiu was really concocting medicinal pills today. Facing Tan Xiu's inquiry, he didn't beat around the bush and said with a smile, You're right. In fact, I came here to ask something from you personally. What is it? Asked Tan Xiu. One life essence pill, said Duan Mulin. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he forced a smile and said, I didn't expect you to be so well informed. It seems that it was Li Juren who leaked it. I still have a few life essence pills here, but I prepared them for my loved ones. But since you asked, I'll give them to you first. After all, you've been working hard for the country. After saying that, Tan Xiu put his hand into his pocket and took out a jade bottle from his interspatial ring. He handed it to Duan Mulin and continued, "This is the life essence pill. Taking one can increase your lifespan by 3 to 5 years." Duan Mulin was shocked inwardly. He took the jade bottle with both hands and looked at it for a long time. Then, he said with satisfaction, "Everyone wants to live a few more years. Tan Xiu, you have a special identity, so I'm afraid you won't be interested in money. How about this? I'll give you an opportunity. Don't you cultivators always talk about opportunities?" Tan Xiu stared blankly and asked with a confused expression, "What kind of opportunity?" "A 3-star vestige," said Duan Mulin slowly. "What's a 3-star vestige?" asked Tan Xiu. Duan Mulin said, "Aliens once appeared on Earth. Although this is a very important secret, and very few people know about this information, you are not an outsider. I can responsibly tell you that some of the aliens came with malice, and some with kindness. According to the laws and regulations of the world, the vestige found by humans is divided into different grades. They are a 1-star vestige, a 2-star vestige, a 3-star vestige, a 4-star vestige, and a 5-star vestige. Even I have never heard of a 5-star vestige. 4-star vestige has appeared twice. The first one was in the Egyptian pyramids, and the second one was in the Bermuda Triangle. Every country has obtained a good harvest in these 2 vestige explorations. But the most important secret has never been cracked. In addition, due to special reasons, the exploration of the 2 vestige ended without a conclusion. A 3-star vestige is also a fatal temptation for every country. In the past 20 to 30 years, the science and technology of every country has developed rapidly, and there is no lack of technological products from the vestige. Even the M nation found a dilapidated alien spaceship in the Amazon rainforest, which eventually made the M nation's scientific and technological power advance by leaps and bounds, making it a powerful country in the world. As for the 2-star vestige and 1-star vestige, they are small ones. Some were left by the ancestors on Earth, and some were extraterrestrial vestige. So the gains gained by each country from them are not particularly big. As Duan Mulin spoke up to this point, a bit of helplessness appeared in his eyes. He forced a smile and said, "Although I said I'm giving you an opportunity, I actually want you to contribute to the country. In the newly discovered 3-star vestige, you can get a lot of extraterrestrial technology to make our country more powerful." Tan Xiu had little interest in extraterrestrial technology. After all, he was an immortal cultivator. In the future, he would rely on his own strength to shatter the void, break the shackles of the heavenly way, and eventually ascend to become an immortal. However, after listening to Duan Mulin's words, he still decided to go there. It was because he needed to make money now. If he could get extraterrestrial technology, he would be able to make a lot of money, which would help him greatly in terms of cultivation and resources in the future. "Can you tell me about the newly discovered 3-star vestige?" "The location is in the Strait of Malacca, which is known as the Crossroads of the Sea," said Duan Mulin. The Strait of Malacca runs from southeast to northwest. Its western section belongs to the Myanmar Sea, while its southeastern section is connected to the South China Sea. The entire strait is 1,080 kilometers long, with the southeastern strait connecting the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean. The newly discovered 3-star vestige is at this junction, and it's located at the bottom of the sea. What kind of people will be sent by each country to explore the 3-star vestige in such a place? Tan Xiu was surprised. "For example, our country will at least send martial arts grandmasters and ability users there," said Duan Mulin with a solemn expression. "In fact, the number of people has already been assembled, and we're just waiting to arrive at the destination before May 1st. Other countries will also send a lot of people with special abilities. I don't know what kind of people will be sent this time, but I'm sure that none of them will be ordinary people." Chapter 759. After the brief meeting, Tan Xiu left the World Trade Hotel. Although Duan Mulin didn't give Tan Xiu any substantial compensation, the quota for exploring the vestige still fell on Tan Xiu. There was still more than half a month before May 1st, so Tan Xiu wasn't in a hurry. He had almost solved the matter in Jingmen Island, except for staying a few more days to accompany Gu Yan, before he decided to return to Shanghai. In the night, the wide road was brightly illuminated by the street lights on both sides as two cars headed toward the everlasting feast hall, one in front and one at the back. Sitting in the back seat of the car in front, Tan Xiu wore a smile on his handsome face as he recalled the scene of his meeting with Duan Mulin and felt very satisfied. In the next few years, as long as Duan Mulin and the ability users under his control didn't find trouble with him, the Tang family would be able to sit back and relax, and he wouldn't have to be afraid of doing things. Before going to Mist Source Island, Tan Xiu clearly remembered the promise made by that person, so he hadn't taken back the green book until now. Act first and report later, the power to kill. Tan Xiu's eyes swept outside the window. Although it was already late at night, there were still some cars passing by. Enjoying the tranquility inside the car, Tan Xiu finally felt a trace of tiredness after being busy for the past few days, causing him to fall asleep. Ring, ring, ring. After an unknown period of time, his cell phone suddenly rang. When Tan Xiu woke up from his sleep, he found that the car had returned to the everlasting feast hall and was parked in the parking lot. He sat motionless in the driver's seat, while Jin Shi and the others were scattered around without disturbing him. "How long have I slept?" asked Tan Xiu while taking out his cell phone. Mo turned his head and said, 4 hours. It's already 4:30 in the morning. I saw that you were sleeping soundly, so I took the liberty to not wake you up. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and looked at the caller ID. After finding that it was Shuiyu, he immediately answered and said, "Shuiyu, you didn't rest?" "Tan Xiu, I have something to tell you." "Speak." "I had a breakthrough in my cultivation last night, so I was struck by a whim to speculate your future and some people related to you," said Shuiyu. "In the end, you didn't manage to predict your future, but you discovered another situation. There's a person who I'm not sure is important to you, but he's going to face a bloody calamity soon. And I found out that she is now in the south." Tan Xiu was startled and hurriedly asked, "Who is it?" "I don't know who it is exactly." Shuiyu forced a wry smile and said, "Anyways, she's a woman. She should be in a critical situation right now. Her specific location is in the sea area near Jingmen Island." "That's right, thunder and lightning storm." There is indeed a thunder and lightning storm in the vicinity of Jingmen Island. She should be there. "Are there any other clues?" asked Tan Xiu. "Yes, but she's not a Chinese, and she's not even a pure human," said Shuiyu. "If you want to participate, you must be careful." Tan Xiu was stunned. He racked his brain but couldn't think of anyone who would be in danger. Not Chinese. Not human. Then who's this important to me? Tan Xiu thought about it and felt that Shuiyu wouldn't have deduced this matter for no reason. Therefore, he opened the door, looked at Mo, and said in a deep voice, "Immediately send someone to check where there is a thunder and lightning storm near Jingmen Island. Hurry up." "Understood." Mo and the others scattered in all directions. A few minutes later, Mo hurried over with the Everlasting Feast Hall's intelligence personnel in Jingmen Island and told Tan Xiu an important news. Thunderstorms had appeared more than 180 nautical miles southeast of Jingmen Island, and the waves had reached 9 degrees. "Contact the port and tell them to prepare the liner. We'll rush there immediately." Tan Xiu's face was a bit gloomy as he sat back in the car. Whoosh! A figure flickered lightning fast and instantly appeared in front of the car. Ji Qimei, who was leaning on her walking stick, transmitted her voice over, "Lord, this subordinate can follow you if there's an emergency." Tan Xiu stared blankly and immediately shook his head in annoyance. He then opened the door and came to Ji Qimei's front, saying in a deep voice, "Ji Qimei, take me to the sea area southeast of Jingmen Island, about 180 nautical miles away. All of you stay here." "Understood." Mo and the others knew how terrifying Ji Qimei was. Seeing her grab Tan Xiu's arm and soar into the sky, they all looked envious. Flying. They could do it, but it was far from being able to travel thousands of miles in a flash. If they were to fly in the air, they would only be able to maintain it for half an hour before their true essence would be completely consumed. Even flying on a flying sword would be less than an hour. In the blink of an eye, Tan Xiao and Ji Qimei had already appeared in the thunder and lightning storm, yet the harsh environment didn't affect them in the slightest. "What are we here for, Lord?" asked Ji Qimei curiously. "Release your spiritual sense and help me investigate the situation within a radius of 100 kilometers, said Tan Xiao in a deep voice. "I need to find a woman who's not from China." "Forget it. Take a good look and see if there are any people within a radius of 100 kilometers. Ji Qimei respectfully nodded. Her spiritual sense continued to spread in all directions, and in the blink of an eye, it had already enveloped a radius of 100 kilometers. Let alone a person, even a fish or a drop of water could be clearly seen by her within this 100 kilometers range. There's a dilapidated fishing boat about 14 kilometers southeast of us. It's likely to be capsized by the waves at any time. In the southwest direction, there are 2 luxury liners. There are a total of 46 people on the 2 liners. One of them only has 1 man, and the rest are all women wearing revealing clothes. There's also a freighter northeast of us with 24 people on board. They're not Chinese, and the freighter also has firearms and other cold weapons. Huh. That's not right. There's a dilapidated fishing boat 14 kilometers southeast of us. It should be capsized in such a storm and swallowed by the Black Sea, right? How can it be safe and sound drifting around? Boss, the woman on that ship is also not Chinese. She has blonde hair and blue eyes, and she's injured. Head southeast, said Tan Xiao immediately. Understood. Ji Qimei didn't hesitate. Her figure flashed and suddenly appeared on the dilapidated fishing boat with Tan Xiao. When the 2 of them approached, a special energy fluctuation made Tan Xiao instantly understand Shuiyu's meaning. Shuiyu said that there was a foreign woman who was related to him, but she didn't say that she had a close relationship with him. Just this slight difference in meaning was enough to make Tang Xiao a bit more worried. Viviani. She used to be the Holy Virgin of the Holy Sea. She had a special power, but she didn't have much combat power. Even her character was very pure and kind. She once helped others and ended up with her family ruined, so much so that she didn't even know about it for a long time. If he hadn't seen her in the casino in Saipan and reminded her, she probably wouldn't have known about it until now. Boss, do you want to save her? Ji Qimei and Tan Xiao were standing on the deck, but their spiritual senses were shrouding Viviani in the cabin. The current Viviani was no longer the goddess she was when Tang Xiao first met her. She looked like a beggar in dire straits. No, she was even worse than a beggar. She was covered with scars. Apart from the clothes on her sensitive parts that were still intact, the rest of her body was in tatters. Wait a minute. Tan Xiao recalled Ji Qimei's words before and a smile suddenly appeared on the corner of his mouth. He realized that it was not the storm that brought danger to Viviani, but the 24 people on the freighter northeast. He clearly remembered that Viviani left Saipan to seek revenge. But now, it seemed that she must have been hunted because of her hatred. Let's go. Let's not disturb her. Let's go to another room in the cabin and wait, whispered Tan Xiao. Ji Qimei nodded and quietly followed Tan Xiao to another room in the cabin. She sat cross-legged inside and used her spiritual sense to observe the outside. Venerable Lord, according to the sailing direction and speed of the freighter northeast, it should catch up with this fishing boat in 2 hours. However, the first to encounter this fishing boat should be those 2 liners, said Ji Qimei with a voice transmission. It's really strange that there are still idlers at sea in such bad weather, said Tan Xiao with a strange expression. Qimei, who are the people on those 2 liners? There are more than 20 men on one of the liners. They should be martial artists, said Ji Qimei. But on the other liner, aside from the dozens of women, there's also a young man who looks like a playboy. He's seeking pleasure. Playboy? Seeking pleasure? Tan Xiao was at a loss whether he had to laugh or cry as he shook his head. As the saying goes, there are all kinds of birds in a big forest. Isn't that guy afraid that he'll lose his life in this vast sea if the storm level rises? Say, do you think that Playboy is a Taoist cultivator? Or someone with some special ability? Otherwise, he should have urged the crew to leave the sea area and take refuge at Jingmen Island's port. Tan Xiao's expression moved as he hurriedly asked with a voice transmission. Ji Qimei shook her head and replied with a voice transmission, he shouldn't be a cultivator, nor does he have any special ability. According to my observation, he should be a martial artist. According to the martial artist classification on Earth, he should be a martial arts grandmaster. A young martial arts grandmaster. Tan Xiao squinted his eyes and searched his mind for this kind of person he was familiar with, but he couldn't find any. Immediately after, he didn't want to think about it anymore and quietly waited. Time fleeted by. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. As the fishing boat and the two liners got closer and closer, the sturdy man on one of the liners finally discovered the existence of the dilapidated fishing boat. Inform the boss that we've encountered a fishing boat. On the deck of the liner, a burly man wearing a raincoat and holding a pair of binoculars ordered several people behind him. Understood. One of them replied and immediately returned to the cabin. Chapter 760. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, heavy rain poured down, and the sea breeze set off huge waves. Despite the terrible weather, the two liners were still sailing slowly. Inside the luxuriously decorated cabin of the Seagull liner, Wang Rui was surrounded by a group of sexy girls in revealing clothes. At this moment, he hugged them left and right, and from time to time, he also accepted the kisses of these beauties. Glasses of champagne exuded a blurred halo under the illumination of the colorful lights, while the plates of fruits were crystal clear, sweet to everyone's taste buds. Ding, 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 the walkie-talkie in the cabin suddenly rang. Wang Rui raised his brows and waved to the girl in a swimsuit beside him. The girl immediately took the walkie-talkie and turned it on. What's up? A deep and low voice came from the walkie-talkie, we found a fishing boat nearby, boss. It's very strange. Strange? Wang Rui was surprised. How strange? The voice came from the walkie-talkie again, that fishing boat is very small and can only accommodate a dozen people at most. It's at least 3 times smaller than our liner. The wind and waves on the sea are very strong, and the weather is very bad. Even a passenger ship like ours can encounter problems when sailing on the sea, but that fishing boat is safe and sound. When it doesn't start sailing, it still floats on the sea. Wang Rui pushed the girl aside, stood up and said, I'm coming out to have a look. He put on his clothes and took a raincoat from the girl. After coming out of the cabin, he went straight to the deck. As the other liner approached, a burly man dashed forward and instantly leaped more than 10 meters away and landed beside Wang Rui. Look, boss. It's that fishing boat. I've observed it. There seems to be no one on it except for a few faint lights, said the burly man as he handed over a pair of binoculars. Wang Rui looked through the binoculars for a few minutes and finally nodded. There's indeed a problem. Let's go there and have a look. Hopefully, we can encounter something fun. 6 or 7 minutes later, the two liners were only tens of meters away from the fishing boat. 4 middle-aged men used their hooks to shoot out ropes and 2 of them successfully hooked the fishing boat. The fishing boat gradually approached the liner under the pull of the ropes. Bang! Suddenly, a gunshot was heard. Viviani walked out of the cabin with a pistol in her hand. Her hair was disheveled and her clothes were ragged. Her muzzle was pointed at the sky, but her murderous aura dispersed toward Wang Rui and the others on the liner. Wang Rui's expression changed. The burly man instantly stood in front of him. He took a deep breath and looked at Viviani under the bright daylight as lightning streaked across the sky. 10 seconds later, he gently pushed away the burly man in front of him, stood on the deck and shouted, Hey, who are you? Aren't you afraid that the fishing boat will capsize in such a big storm? Viviani had already sunk into despair. She was riddled with scars and exhausted. Even the energy within her body had been completely consumed. For more than half a month, she had been on the run. Even when she took the opportunity to rest and recover, it was still not as fast as the consumption. Encountering a storm. She used her own ability to control the fishing boat and barely drifted in the waves, and now was the moment when she was at the end of her strength. Who are you people? Viviani's voice was a bit hoarse. The wound on the left side of her neck had affected her normal pronunciation. It was the result of her damaged vocal cords. We're Chinese, and they're my men, said Wang Rui aloud. We thought the weather was good, so we came to the sea to play. We didn't expect to encounter a storm, so we're about to return to Jingmen Island. Are you in trouble, miss? Viviani took a deep breath. Though she really wanted to get help, she was well aware of the crisis she was facing. Based on her experience in the past half a month, she could infer that her enemies must be in the vicinity of this sea area. If she were to get help from them, it would very likely bring disaster to them. I don't need help. Please go away. Viviani stabilized her body and walked step by step to the side of the ship. 2 shots were fired and 2 ropes were accurately hit by the bullets, breaking them. Good marksmanship. Wang Rui's eyes lit up as he applauded and said, Miss, your marksmanship is amazing. The sky has just turned bright, but it's still a bit dark for an ordinary person. But you were able to directly shoot the ropes. That's really admirable. Judging from your appearance, you should be injured, right? I have a medical kit on this liner with all kinds of medicines inside. I think you'll need them. Viviani fell into silence. She indeed needed medicine to treat herself. But she was afraid of bringing trouble to the other party, so she was at a loss for what to do for a while. Use the hook gun. Wang Rui was keenly aware of Viviani's hesitation and immediately ordered. As the hook gun was fired, it hooked the fishing boat where Viviani was. 7 or 8 stalwart men pulled the fishing boat and the liner that had stopped sailing. Wang Rui raised his hands, indicating that he was not in danger. He then jumped to the deck of the fishing boat and smilingly said, There's an old saying in Huaxia that it's fate that we meet. Since we are able to meet in this kind of bad weather, on this vast sea, this is a great fate. How should I address you, miss? Viviani's expression suddenly changed. She instantly retreated more than a meter and vigilantly said, I know you. Wang Rui stared blankly and carefully observed Viviani's face. He faintly felt that Viviani was indeed somewhat familiar, but her face was pale and dirty, so he couldn't see her face clearly. So he asked, I'm not sure if I know you, Mississippi. My name is Wang Rui. Can you introduce yourself? Viviani. Ugh, Wang Rui suddenly recalled an exotic and stunning face. Back when he was in Saipan, he once met a woman on the gambling table. Her name was Viviani, and the appearance of that Viviani and this woman in front of him didn't seem to have much difference. How come it's you? How did you? Wang Rui looked at Viviani incredulously and asked. After all, the woman in front of him and the one he saw before were like clouds and mud. Viviani was silent for about half a minute before she slowly said, I ran into an enemy, so I'm a bit embarrassed. Mr. Wang, can you give me some medicine? I'm a bit injured and need to be treated promptly. You can rest assured that I won't implicate you. I'll leave immediately after I get the medicine. Miss Viviani, I just told you that it was fate that brought us together. Wang Rui shook his head. We're at sea and the climate here is very bad. I'm sure you don't just need medicine. Come. Come with me to our liner. You can take a comfortable bath and wear some clean ladies' clothes. Then you can take the time to deal with your injuries. As for your enemy, I don't think they can chase you here. Even if they do, I'm sure I can help you deal with them. A mocking smile appeared on Viviani's face. She shook her head and sighed, You have no idea what kind of people my enemy is, Mr. Wang. I really don't want to implicate you, so please give me some medicine. Also, you can give me your contact number. I'll repay you 100 times later if I can escape to a safe place alive. Wang Rui felt a bit uncomfortable inside. He felt that he was being looked down upon. In a flash, a surging aura was released from his body as he said in a deep voice, "Miss Viviani, we Chinese people have always been very modest. There's an old saying that goes, if you don't have a diamond, don't do porcelain work. Since I dare to tell you that I can guarantee your safety, you don't need to worry about implicating us." Viviani wanted to say something more, but Wang Rui had already strode toward her. He maintained his gentlemanly demeanor and gestured for her to enter. Fearing that Viviani would continue to refuse, he said with all seriousness, "I don't think the noble and holy Miss Viviani will refuse someone's kindness in a time of crisis." Viviani forced a smile inwardly. Thinking that her enemies might not be able to catch up with her in a short time, she finally chose to believe Wang Rui. After boarding one of the liners, her sharp eyes swept over more than 20 stalwart men before they finally entered the cabin. Huh? Viviani didn't expect that she would see such an unbearable scene. More than a dozen women in the cabin were exposed one by one. After Wang Rui entered the cabin, they swarmed around him like flies, showing off their coquettishness and flattering Wang Rui. Wang Rui let out an indifferent smile and slapped the buttocks of a blonde woman. Then, he said with a smile, "Go find a new set of clean clothes. I think Miss Viviani will need them. Also, take her to wipe her body and treat her wounds. Then, take her to wear the new clothes." "All right." The blonde woman was a bit reluctant, but she still managed to deal with it. After she took Viviani to another cabin, the previous stalwart man came to Wang Rui's front and reported in a low voice, "I've checked. There's no one else in that fishing boat except for that woman. We found traces of fighting in that fishing boat, but there's nothing special about it." Wang Rui nodded and said, "Be vigilant. Since Viviani is worried about implicating us, it means that her crisis has not been resolved yet. Maybe some people will come here and have some unpleasant encounters with us." Half an hour later, Viviani's wounds were treated. She also wiped her body and changed into clean clothes. When she reappeared in front of Wang Rui, despite being accustomed to seeing beauties, Wang Rui was still impressed by Viviani's beauty. He sighed from the bottom of his heart and said, "Miss Viviani is so beautiful, just like when we first met in Saipan. It's really a small world. I didn't expect that we would meet again here and under such circumstances." Viviani slightly nodded and said, "Thank you, Mr. Wang. I'll keep today's kindness in my heart. But I can't stay here for long. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." Chapter 761. Viviani was not a kind-hearted person, especially in recent times. It could be said that her hands were stained with blood. But sometimes after the slaughter, she would be shocked by the tragic scene after the battle, and she would be scared to the point of being drenched in cold sweat even in her sleep. She used to be a saintess in the hearts of countless people. She used to be worshipped by countless people. After learning the pure kindness education of the God of Light, her whole heart was purified, and her nature was definitely good. Therefore, she didn't want to accept Wang Rui's good intentions. She didn't want to implicate innocent people, even if Wang Rui was not an ordinary person. "My enemies are more powerful than you can imagine. I'm guessing that they should be nearby, so I can't implicate you. I'm already very grateful to you for these medicines." After saying that, Viviani turned around and was about to leave. Wang Rui strode forward to block in front of Viviani. With a firm and overbearing tone, he said in a deep voice, "I might have let you leave if you weren't injured. But with your current condition, I'm afraid you'll die once you encounter those enemies. Your enemies may be very powerful, but we're not vegetarians. I'm very bored right now, so I'm more than willing to have some fun. Of course, we can leave here immediately if you don't feel at ease. I'll take you to Jingmen Island to take shelter." Viviani's heart was moved. She was very willing to hide in Jingmen Island because she remembered someone who might be able to help her. Are we going to Jingmen Island now? After pondering for a moment, Viviani asked with a bit of expectation in her eyes. No problem. We can go now. Wang Rui nodded. Wang Rui's men took off the hook gun's rope and abandoned the fishing boat in the vast sea. The two liners braved the wind and waves as they sailed toward Jingmen Island. Although the wind and waves were getting stronger, it didn't cause much damage to the two liners. A glass of red wine was placed in front of Viviani by Wang Rui. He then sat back on the soft sofa and let the girls around him surround him. However, the current Wang Rui didn't have the same playful feeling he had before. Compared to Viviani, the women around him were simply inferior. Be it in appearance or temperament, they were like the clouds and mud. F Country's Bordeaux red wine, brewed by the top red wine villa, has been preserved for 22 years. Be it the color or the taste, they were definitely top-notch. Have a taste. This red wine has a good effect on women's beauty. Wang Rui said with a smile. Thank you. Viviani did not pick up the glass of red wine, nor did she taste any of the fruits and pastries on the table. She was somewhat vigilant about encountering Wang Rui at sea. After all, the climate here was too harsh, and it was very abnormal for Wang Rui to seek pleasure here. At the bow of the liner, the burly man stood straight like a javelin, his cold eyes looking at the surrounding sea. As the sky grew brighter and brighter, it was already daytime. However, what made him a little nervous was that not only did the wind and waves not weaken, they became even stronger. Even the scene of lightning and thunder showed signs of strengthening. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly, and his cold eyes focused. After locking his gaze on the black dot on the distant sea, he immediately grabbed his binoculars and looked in that direction. Cargo ship. The burly man recalled what Viviani had said to Wang Rui before and immediately became vigilant. He beckoned a middle-aged man and gave him the binoculars. After giving him some instructions, he hurriedly entered the cabin. After Viviani came to Wang Rui's liner, he and the other two guards did not return to the other liner. Although Wang Rui was very strong, he was still a bit worried. Boss, there seems to be some trouble. Wang Rui raised his brows and asked, what trouble? Is the storm more violent than before? Or are Miss Viviani's enemies chasing us? There's a medium-sized cargo ship a few nautical miles away from us, said the burly man. I've observed it with my binoculars. Some people on that cargo ship are armed with guns, even heavy machine guns with heavy firepower. When I discovered them, they should have discovered us in advance, and according to my observation, that medium-sized cargo ship is sailing in the direction of us. Wang Rui turned to look at Viviani and asked, can you tell me the origin of your enemies in advance? Don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to pry into your privacy. But if those people are really your enemies, I'm afraid we won't be able to hide from them. There's an old saying in Huaxia, know your enemy and know yourself, and you'll be victorious in every battle. I want to know my enemies so that I can deal with them more easily. Viviani directly got up from the sofa. The redness on her beautiful face turned a bit paler and a bit of despair could be seen in her eyes. Underworld forces, savage mammoth, she said bitterly. Wang Rui turned to look at the burly man and found that his complexion greatly changed. He immediately frowned and asked, do you know these people Miss Viviani just mentioned? The burly man nodded bitterly and said, Savage Mammoth is the name of a very powerful organization. It's absolutely terrifying in Europe. I've dealt with Savage Mammoth's people before. Those people are lunatics. They are crazy to themselves and their enemies. Strictly speaking, they're not even human beings. Tell me the specifics, said Wang Rui. The burly man said, Savage Mammoth was originally a small force. Their business mainly relied on firearms and drugs. But more than a decade ago, this organization secretly developed a drug that can integrate the blood of wild beasts into the human body, thus causing a mutation in the human body. This drug is very dangerous. For example, only 2 out of 10 people can survive after taking it. But those who survive will have some kind of animal ability. I once met 2 savage mammoth people. They were injected with ant genes, so their power can be said to be terrifying. It's already very terrifying for an ordinary person to lift a few hundred pounds of things, but those 2 people can easily lift a 2 to 3 ton car. Therefore, the Savage Mammoth Organization continued to expand and absorb new blood in just a decade. Eventually, it formed a very huge force. Outsiders only know that there are 3 terrifying forces in the world, namely the Pyramid, the Crusader Consortium, and the Stygian Club. But only a few people know about the Savage Mammoth Organization. Of course, the Savage Mammoth Organization is obviously much weaker compared to these 3 forces, but it's not an organization that ordinary forces can afford to provoke. The meaning behind his last sentence was very obvious. He hoped that Wang Rui wouldn't get involved in this matter. He knew very well that even Wang Rui couldn't afford to provoke the Savage Mammoth Organization. Wang Rui frowned and felt that the situation was a bit tricky. However, he had promised Viviani that he would protect her and even get rid of those who were after her. If he were to go back on his word now, it would be really shameful for him. Wang Rui thought for a moment and suddenly said, Savage Mammoth Organization is very powerful, but it's only in Europe. This is China's sea area. Don't tell me that all the Savage Mammoth people are coming here. It won't be a big problem as long as we don't have to face the entire Savage Mammoth Organization for the time being. Notify everyone to immediately issue a warning if the enemy approaches. If they don't listen, then get ready to fight. Viviani was keenly aware of Wang Rui's hesitation. Although he seemed to have made up his mind, she was still somewhat worried. After a few seconds of silence, she asked, Do you have a speedboat on your liner? Yes. Wang Rui nodded. Can you give me a speedboat? I'll drive it alone, Mr. Wang, said Viviani. Mr. Wang, the Savage Mammoth Organization has sent a lot of experts. I've spent a lot of effort, but I still can't shake them off. I really can't drag you down with me. Wang Rui raised his hand and was about to speak, but an angry roar outside the cabin made him swallow back the words he wanted to say. Bastard! Go to hell. At the bow of the ship, 2 dripping wet foreign youths were besieging one of Wang Rui's men with a dagger. The other man's neck had been torn open, and he was twitching and falling to the ground. Whoosh, the burly man dashed out of the cabin like lightning. When he appeared on the bow of the ship, he instantly pulled out a Mitsubishi army knife from his waist and pounced on the 2 drenched foreign youths like a ferocious tiger. His speed was very fast and his strength was very powerful. At least, he had reached the level of a martial arts grandmaster. In just 2 breaths, the Mitsubishi army knife in his hand had pierced the back of one of the foreign youths. Retreat! The injured foreign youth shouted in YDL language. In a flash, the 2 of them jumped into the sea below without hesitation. The burly man and another middle-aged man stood on the side of the ship, watching the 2 foreign youths disappear in the sea. Killing intent was faintly discernible in their eyes. After Wang Rui arrived, he immediately checked the man who fell to the ground, only to find that the man's twitching had weakened and he gradually stopped breathing. Savage Mammoth, damn it! Wang Rui got up and tightly clenched his fists. He was now sure that even if Viviani was not here, the Savage Mammoth Organization's people wouldn't have any good intentions. After all, they brazenly sent people to attack Viviani before they could figure out that she was on their ship. Viviani quietly came behind Wang Rui. Her eyes swept over the dead body and apologetically said, I'm sorry. I'm the one who implicated your men. They shouldn't know that you're here. Wang Rui shook his head and said, So they didn't attack my men because of you. Savage Mammoth's people are very powerful. They can quietly swim from the bottom of the sea in this stormy weather and attack my men without anyone noticing. It seems that the battle will be very fierce. Chapter 762. At a height of several hundred meters, Ji Qimei had released her domain and shrunk it to a radius of several hundred meters. Despite the rolling thunder and torrential rain in the heavenly mountain, it still couldn't pose any threat to her and Tan Xiu. It seems they're in trouble. Ji Qimei indifferently looked at the scene below and her voice was as cold as a stream of wind. In her view, those people below were just like ants. She wouldn't even want to stay here and waste her time if it wasn't for her lord's concern. Encountering more troubles is a good thing, said Tan Xiu indifferently. If it's always smooth sailing, then there's no way to be reborn through tempering. You're from the immortal world, so you should have heard the story of the pure young immortal, right? He grew up under the wings of a goshawk and has never encountered any wind or waves. Even with countless resources and supreme immortal records, he has even reached the perfected golden immortal level. But the result? He was killed by a newcomer who just ascended to the immortal world not long ago, and eventually became the laughingstock of hundreds of millions of immortals in the immortal world. Ji Qimei nodded in agreement and said, "You're right. Flowers in a greenhouse can never be compared to weeds that have endured the endless years of wind and rain. If I may be so bold as to ask, is the girl named Viviani one of us?" Tan Xiu shook his head indifferently. He also couldn't figure out why Shuiyu was able to deduce something related to him. How come she was able to deduce Viviani? He only met her once and they didn't even have any friendship. Even if she was killed in front of him, it had nothing to do with him, right? Of course. This was also the reason why he didn't immediately appear in front of Viviani after he and Ji Qimei arrived here and discovered Viviani. He wanted to figure out the truth and figure out what exactly happened to Viviani that made her look so miserable. Ji Qimei, do you know much about the White Wing clan? Tan Xiu suddenly turned his head and asked. The White Wing clan is just one of the hundreds of millions of races in the immortal world. Ji Qimei nodded and said, moreover, this clan is very sad. Since their birth, they've faced the eyes of countless races, especially their women. Each and every one of them is a stunningly beautiful stunner and a plaything in the eyes of countless immortal world powerhouses. The cultivation system of this clan is incomplete, and it's even more difficult for them to practice ordinary martial arts in the immortal world. Even after tens of thousands of years, no one from the White Wing clan has a very strong power. Tan Xiu nodded. I suspect that Viviani has the bloodline of the White Wing clan. However, I don't understand why someone with the White Wings clan's bloodline would appear on Earth. Ji Qimei was startled and then said in surprise, I just recalled a rumor. Although the White Wings clan had never produced a powerful immortal, they did have a highly intelligent clansman. Her name was Boromyvian. She had once proposed a theory within her race, descending to a lower realm and merging her bloodline with a mortal's body would allow her to have both the bloodline of the human race and the White Wings clan. If Viviani really has the bloodline of the White Wing clan, it's very likely that she's the product of this conclusion. Isn't this too absurd? Tan Xiu frowned. If an immortal wants to descend to an ordinary plane, even if it's a low-level plane, it's not allowed. Unless their strength breaks through to the perfected golden immortal stage, it's very difficult for them to descend. Immortals who have reached the perfected golden immortal stage are already very powerful. It shouldn't be difficult for them to shelter a weak race. I don't know about this. Ji Qimei shook her head. Tan Xiu shook his head and shook off the confusion in his mind. His eyes then landed on the ships below. On the bow of the liner. Viviani didn't relax because of Wang Rui's stubbornness. Instead, it made her more worried. She didn't want to confront the savage mammoths people head-on because she was perfectly aware that fighting them head-on was tantamount to striking a stone with an egg. She wanted Wang Rui to leave with his people, while she only needed a speedboat to escape in time. But, the Wang Rui before her was too arrogant and stubborn. The distance between the liner and the cargo ship kept getting closer. At this moment, Wang Rui and Viviani could clearly see dozens of fully armed men and women on the cargo ship. They even saw a silver-haired old man standing proudly with his hands behind his back on the bow of the cargo ship. We're in trouble. The burly man standing next to Wang Rui had a clear look at the silver-haired old man's appearance. His heart thumped and a chill emerged inside him. What kind of trouble? asked Wang Rui with a frown. We're in big trouble, boss, said the burly man bitterly. That old geezer is a very powerful figure in the savage mammoth. He's similar to the law enforcement hall master of our country's ancient gangs. Rumors say that he's very terrifying, but nobody has ever seen him in action because those who have seen him in action are all dead. Aside from the mysterious leader of the savage mammoth, this old geezer is probably the most terrifying one in this organization. Don't boost the momentum of others and belittle our own. Wang Rui coldly snorted. I've broken through to the martial arts grandmaster realm, and you're just a step away from reaching a higher level. Even if it's only the two of us, I'm sure we can exterminate them. Besides, don't forget that there's a non-human among the people who came with us this time. The burly man subconsciously glanced at the cabin of the other liner, and his tense mood eased a lot. He naturally knew who the non-human Wang Rui was talking about was. He was one of the top powerhouses in Qingqing Mountain. Quickly, the distance between the two liners and the cargo ship was less than 100 meters. As both sides stopped, the silver-haired old man standing on the bow of the cargo ship shouted in fluent English, I don't care who you are. Immediately give up resistance and accept our inspection. We're chasing an enemy, and anyone who dares to harbor our enemy is our enemy. Wang Rui was secretly startled by the silver-haired old man's loud voice, but he still calmed his mind and shouted, You savage mammoth people are quite arrogant. How dare you be so domineering in our country's turf? Aren't you afraid that you'll all die in this sea? The silver-haired old man burst into laughter and said, Arrogant? Domineering? I've always been like this. I can twist your heads and dig out your hearts if you don't accept it. Ha ha ha, don't make me say it again. Immediately give up resistance and squat at the bow with your hands on your heads. I can spare your lowly lives if I'm in a good mood. Wang Rui coldly turned his head and issued an order, get close and board their cargo ship to kill them all. Anyone who dares to threaten me must die. Half a minute later. The distance between the two liners and the cargo ship was less than 20 meters. Just as Wang Rui's more than 20 subordinates were ready to board the cargo ship and carry out a one-sided massacre, four ghostly figures suddenly sprinted over. The distance of nearly 20 meters was covered by them in just a dash. 4 sabers. 4 sharp and murderous long sabers fiercely slashed toward Wang Rui. Their speed was even faster than Wang Rui's evasion speed. Fuck off. The burly man instantly shot out the dagger in his hand and forcibly blocked a long saber. At the same time, a hazy shadow shot over from a distance. It was a heavy spear that was instantly grabbed by the burly man. His surging momentum continued to rise as the long spear turned into a spear's shadow that directly blocked all the attacks for Wang Rui. Human ladder bridge. The silver-haired old man shouted in a deep voice at the bow of the cargo ship. Immediately, 12 men in black robes, whose foreheads were covered by the brim of their black hoods, leaped towards the liner. One of them rushed out while the other flew up and instantly stepped on his leg. The moment he was about to fall, the others sprinted again and even used their corpses to provide leverage for the other party to continue sprinting. The artistic, human ladder bridge had a very perfect leverage effect. The 12 men in black robes had already sprinted to the deck of the liner in just a few breaths. As their black robes exploded, sharp long sabers were drawn from their backs and frantically tangled with Wang Rui's men. Roar! Suddenly, a man with green eyes let out an inhuman roar. His nails began to grow crazily, and a dense layer of fluff appeared on his body. Originally, he only had the strength of a martial arts master, but his speed suddenly soared several times. His feet landed on the ground and his body sprinted toward one of Wang Rui's men like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. His sharp nails swept through the man's neck and killed him with one blow. Hiss! A layer of dense scales suddenly appeared on the other man's body. His body also changed. It was as if all the bones in his body had been pulled out. His whole body became extremely soft, like a willow swaying in the wind. He constantly circled around Wang Rui's men and attacked them. Sharp fangs grew rapidly in the man's mouth. He was full of sharp aura and directly killed another of Wang Rui's men in a swift and violent attack. Poisonous fog. The silver-haired old man on the cargo ship seemed to be very dissatisfied with the battle situation in front of him. After several of Wang Rui's men were killed, he shouted loudly. In an instant, the 16 savage mammoth powerhouses who landed on the liner grabbed a porcelain bottle. As the porcelain bottle's cap was pulled off, a pale green smoke billowed out and dispersed in all directions under the strong wind. Wang Rui's complexion changed and he shouted, "Be careful. The fog is poisonous." The moment the other party released the poisonous fog, the burly man seized the opportunity to stab an enemy's abdomen with his spear. Just when he wanted to directly kill the other party, a shuttle instantly penetrated his chest along the spear's shaft. Puff! Blood spurted out and the burly man's body violently trembled a few times before he softly fell to the ground. Bastard! Wang Rui roared and forced the enemy in front of him to retreat. He then flashed and appeared in front of the burly man. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that his most capable subordinate, who was even more powerful than him, would actually be struck down by the enemy at this moment. Chapter 763. The pale green smoke was blown into a mess and spread to a larger area, so much so that 2 liners and a fishing boat were shrouded in it. Despite Wang Rui's timely warning, some of the martial artists who didn't completely hold their breaths still inhaled some of the pale green poisonous smoke. Puff, 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 blades flashed and swords flashed as flesh and blood splattered everywhere. In just a minute or two, more than 20 of Wang Rui's powerful subordinates were either killed or severely injured by the savage mammoth. Even the burly man, who was very powerful, was seriously injured and lost his fighting strength. Viviani gritted her teeth. Her sapphire eyes were full of hatred as they locked on the 2 black-robed men in front of her. After a short period of recovery, she had recovered 20 to 30% of her strength. But she was still on the verge of collapsing under the frenzied attacks of the 2 black-robed men and was in a perilous situation. Holy light, stain with blood. Viviani suddenly retreated. The moment her back touched the cabin, a resolute look appeared in her eyes. She cut her finger with a sharp dagger and a hazy milky white radiance spread out from her body. Strands of blood-colored light spread out like a tide on the milky white radiance. The blood-colored holy light seemed to weave into a big net as she waved her arm with all her might. The net instantly enveloped the 2 black-robed men who were trying to retreat. In the next moment, a flame rose on the blood-colored holy light as a monstrous heatwave burned the 2 black-robed men in just a few breaths. In the air, Ji Qimei's pupils shrunk and a strange light flashed in her eyes. She slowly said, "Lord, that little girl called Viviani is using the holy light blood art of the White Wings clan. This holy light blood art is extremely vicious. It's vicious to the enemy and also to the user. It's a forbidden art that burns the user's essence and blood essence. Most importantly, using this holy light blood art will burn the user's vitality." Tan Xiu frowned and said, "You mean you can determine Viviani's identity? She's the White Wings clan from the immortal world who came to Earth. It's just that she changed her form. According to the saying on Earth, it's called reincarnation while retaining her consciousness and core bloodline. It should be correct." Ji Qimei nodded. If the White Wing clan of the immortal world wanted to descend in this way, they must be very powerful. At the very least, they must be at the Golden Immortal Realm. As far as I know, the White Wings clan doesn't even have a perfected Golden Immortal, but they do have a small number of Golden Immortals. It seems that Viviani's predecessor should be an immortal who reached the Golden Immortal stage. Tan Xiu said with a smile. Speaking of which, her aptitude was not bad. Now that she had the bloodline of a human, if she was nurtured well, it should not be a problem for her to return to the Golden Immortal Realm. However, if I'm not wrong, if she's able to ascend to the immortal world once more, she'll be able to unlock the memories of her previous life. Perhaps, according to her previous cultivation experience, it's not impossible for her to reach the perfected Golden Immortal Realm. Ji Qimei asked with a strange expression, "Does Venerable Lord want to take her as his subordinate?" Tan Xiu nodded and said, "I do have this thought." Ji Qimei said, "Such being the case, Venerable Lord, you must be mentally prepared. When we return to the immortal world, we must protect the White Wings clan." "Is it a problem for me to protect the White Wings clan?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Given your ability, Venerable Lord, it's naturally a piece of cake for you to protect the White Wings clan. Now, do you want this subordinate to save them?" Tan Xiu shot a deep look at the battle below. He shook his head and said, "When someone is drowning, saving them in the most desperate moment is the only way to make the other party feel the greatest gratitude. Take that Wang Rui brat below for example. He helped Viviani when she was fleeing, but he can only get a bit of gratitude from her at most. It's not enough to make her see a glimmer of hope in her despair." "What Venerable Lord said makes sense," sighed Ji Qimei sincerely. On the ocean liner, after Viviani used the holy light blood art, the energy inside her body that had just been restored was completely consumed. Furthermore, she had burned her blood essence and consumed her vitality, causing her to completely lose her combat effectiveness. "She's dead." Viviani's slender body swayed a few times. She would have fallen to the floor if it wasn't for her holding the cabin wall. She regretted boarding Wang Rui's liner. Had she not boarded it and continued to drift on the vast sea, perhaps she wouldn't have been found by savage mammoth's people. Even if she was in a difficult situation, she could still live longer. The most important thing was that she wouldn't have implicated Wang Rui and his men. "Die," a deep and aged voice blasted in everyone's ears on the liner. A huge aura instantly arrived as a long sword streaked across the sky and swept the necks of two black-robed men. Blood splashed like a fountain as the two black-robed men were directly killed. The long sword swept and a shadow flickered. A series of afterimages were seen as the black-robed men who boarded the liner were beheaded one after another. Wang Rui, who was resisting the enemy's attacks, suddenly felt light. He watched several of his opponents being directly killed, but he didn't feel happy at all. He was perfectly aware that even if he could kill all the savage mammoth's people today, it would still be a heavy loss for him. The subordinates he brought this time were all top-notch experts under normal circumstances. Several of them were even about to reach the martial Dao Grandmaster realm. "Interesting." An erratic voice came from the mouth of the old man on the bow of the fishing boat. A hazy figure suddenly appeared in front of the old man who killed the black-robed experts. As the sharp scales pierced his clothes, the scales on his back protruded more than 10 centimeters long, and two black horns drilled out of his head. His surging aura pressed down on the old man in front of him. Where did this monster come from? The eyes of the old man from Qingqing Mountain flickered. He waved his long sword and layers of sword shadows instantly shrouded the old man. The silver-haired old man laughed maniacally. He raised his arms and allowed the long sword to slash at his scaly arms. At that moment, the silver-haired old man's laughter suddenly came to an abrupt end. The scales on his arms were torn and two bone-deep wounds spurted out blood. Scram! The silver-haired old man had a ferocious look in his eyes. The moment his arm was injured, he slammed into the old man from Qingqing Mountain. The huge impact caused the old man from Qingqing Mountain to be unable to dodge in time, and his body was forcefully sent flying. As he spurted out a mouthful of blood, the old man's complexion drastically changed. After stabilizing his body, he kept waving his long sword to force the silver-haired old man back and then flashed to appear in front of Wang Rui. "Bastard! How did you provoke these monsters?" Wang Rui had just witnessed the battle between the two old men. His heart trembled a few times when he saw the elder of his clan getting injured. It must be noted that the strength of this elder had broken through the martial Dao Grandmaster realm and reached a higher level. They're mutants injected with wild beast genes. They have the ability of wild beasts. The old man from Qingqing Mountain fiercely exhaled and put his hand on Wang Rui's body. The moment he dashed to the cabin door, he forcefully threw him inside and then stood proudly at the cabin door. "Hey, old geezer, let's talk." The silver-haired old man's eyes flickered with viciousness as he grinned and said, "You want to negotiate with me? What qualifications do you have to negotiate with me? You're very strong." The old man from Qingqing Mountain snorted coldly. "Even my current cultivation is slightly weaker than you. But you should also be well aware that you won't be able to survive today if I go all out and try to perish together with you. I don't know about the enmity between us, but I think we should stop immediately. If there's any misunderstanding between us, we can talk about it." The silver-haired old man fell into silence. He also realized the terrifying strength of the other party. Most importantly, the mutated body wouldn't last for too long. It could only last for 10 minutes at most. If he couldn't kill the enemy in 10 minutes, he could only wait to be slaughtered. "I want her dead." The silver-haired old man suddenly turned his head and pointed at Viviani. The old man from Qingqing Mountain looked at Viviani and immediately frowned. He then turned his head and shouted, "Tell me, who is this foreign woman to you?" "She's my friend." Inside the cabin, Wang Rui's heart sank. He had never expected that even this elder of his clan would not be able to exterminate all of the savage mammoth members. In fact, unless it was absolutely necessary, this elder of the clan would not even negotiate with the other party. He realized that he might not be able to protect Viviani. The old man from Qingqing Mountain snorted coldly. He then glanced at Viviani and said, "You can kill her since she's not one of us. However, I have a condition, and that is that you cannot kill her on our liner." "No problem." The silver-haired old man nodded. Saying, he gestured to the two black-robed men behind him. The two black-robed men immediately sprinted in front of Viviani. Their sharp nails pierced into Viviani's shoulder and quickly dragged her to the fishing boat. The silver-haired old man nodded to the old man from Qingqing Mountain and smilingly said, "You're very strong, mister. I hope we still have a chance to fight in the future. To us, China is a restricted area. I hope that you can visit Europe in the future." "I'll definitely visit Europe if I have the chance," sneered the old man from Qingqing Mountain. The silver-haired old man let out a strange laugh and immediately dashed to the fishing boat like a cannonball. He didn't even glance at the captured Viviani and shouted in a deep voice, "Go back." At this moment, Viviani's heart was like dead ashes. She was abandoned, but she didn't have the slightest resentment. She realized that neither Wang Rui nor the old man from Qingqing Mountain could protect her. Perhaps, this is the best ending. But it's a pity that I can't see him again. I can't tell him that I've killed a few enemies. Chapter 764. Viviani's heart was filled with despair because she had no energy left in her body. The holy light blood art was a forbidden technique that could harm her. Not to mention other aspects, just the fact that she couldn't use her power for the next 3 days was enough. In such a situation where she didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken, let alone these experts from Savage Mammoth, even an ordinary person could easily kill her. After being abandoned on the deck of the cargo ship, Viviani saw Wang Rui, whose face was livid and full of hatred. He stood next to the Qingqing Mountain old man at the moment and didn't speak for a long time. A sad but beautiful smile bloomed on Viviani's face. Her lips trembled as she mouthed, "Thank you. Bastard." Wang Rui clenched his fists. This was the second time he felt powerless. The first time was when he was defeated by Tan Xiu's men in Saipan. A cold and indifferent expression could be seen on the Qingqing Mountain old man's face. He glanced at Wang Rui and lightly said, "I've seen your impulsiveness and immaturity since I came out with you this time. I'll definitely report this to your grandpa after we go back. As for how he punishes you, it's not up to me." Wang Rui suddenly turned his head with anger flashing in his eyes as he questioned in a deep voice, "You obviously could have saved her. Why did you give up?" "I told you, she's my friend. There's no such thing as an absolute friend in this world." The Qingqing Mountain old man sneered. "I can only choose self-preservation when it comes to protecting my friends. I can indeed kill that old geezer if I use my trump card, but I'll lose my reliance after using it. Hence, I have no obligation to help your friend who has nothing to do with me. It's enough as long as you don't die. Was it enough? Wang Rui's face was burning. He recalled the words he said before and how he stopped Viviani from staying on the liner to rest. To put it bluntly, he was the one who harmed Viviani. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been caught by Savage Mammoth's men and wouldn't have been captured if she had left directly. I can't accept this, said Wang Rui hatefully. The old man from Qingqing Mountain sneered and said, if you don't want to accept it, then put away your thoughts of eating, drinking, and having fun in the future. Just stay in seclusion and cultivate in the mountains. Although you are known as the most outstanding genius of our Qingqing Mountain in the past 100 years, if you continue to fool around like this, other young people will definitely surpass you, step on your head, and may even become the successor of our Qingqing Mountain in the future. If it was in the past, Wang Rui would definitely disdain the old man's words and think that he had done a very good job. After all, a martial Dao Grand Master who was less than 30 years old was definitely a first-class master. If he was given another 8 to 10 years, he was confident that he could break through the barrier of martial Dao Grandmaster and reach a higher level. But now, his pride had been brutally shattered, and his arrogance had vanished into thin air. In fact, the cruel reality told him that even if he reached a higher level in the future, he still wouldn't be invincible. There were still many experts in this world. What's that? The expression of the old man from Qingqing Mountain suddenly changed and he looked up at the cargo ship that was gradually disappearing. He could vaguely see that hundreds of meters above the cargo ship, bolts of lightning were faintly discernible, and a layer of light blue watery light was rippling in the air. Wang Rui followed his gaze and was stunned. His eyes were filled with shock. The lightning bolts quickly became clearer, and the pale blue watery light was like falling from the sky, constantly magnifying in his eyes. At this moment, the silver-haired old man on the cargo ship also noticed the abnormality in the sky. His expression turned incomparably solemn, and the scales that had yet to recede erected one by one, ready to fight. Boom! Tens of thousands of lightning bolts gradually formed as thick as an arm. These lightning bolts shuttled back and forth in the watery blue light curtain, sometimes merging and sometimes separating. The thunder in the sky became louder and more deafening. It was like the doomsday in this area, making people panic. Crack! A lightning bolt suddenly broke through the blue light curtain and struck down from a height of 100 to 200 meters, directly killing a black-robed man on the cargo ship. Watch out! Dodge! The silver-haired old man was horrified and cried out involuntarily. Although he shouted, his mind was as clear as a mirror. The lightning was too powerful and too fast. Even he was not sure if he could dodge it, let alone his men. Crack! Crack! Lightning bolts constantly broke free from the watery blue light curtain. These lightning bolts seemed to have eyes, and every time they struck down, they would accurately hit a member of Savage Mammoth. In just a dozen breaths, more than 30 experts of Savage Mammoth had died tragically in the lightning attack. What's going on? The silver-haired old man's heart was filled with fear. Had it not been for his poor swimming skills, he might have jumped into the sea to escape. This lightning bolt was too strange. It didn't strike anywhere else, and it didn't attack anything else, but his men. It was simply a targeted attack. However, no one answered his question. Out of his dozens of subordinates, only a dozen or so were still alive. Most importantly, all of them had retreated to the cabin, leaving only Viviani, who was lying limply on the deck. Lightning still kept striking down. This time, the target was the top of the cargo ship's cabin. The lightning was very powerful, and the thick top was constantly being struck and even directly pierced through. In the end, the power of the fishing boat was destroyed, and a large amount of seawater poured in, causing the entire cargo ship to sink. A kilometer away. Standing on the bow of the liner, the Qingqing Mountain old man, Wang Rui, and his few remaining men were all dumbfounded and tongue-tied at the sight of the tragic state of the fishing boat. Is this the wrath of the heavens that the savage mammoth's members have done? Wang Rui's lips squirmed as he muttered to himself. The Qingqing Mountain old man slowly came to his senses. He deeply frowned and shook his head. Something's not right. This isn't the wrath of the heavens. It's more like a celestial being is targeting those mutants. Is this even possible? Before Wang Rui could finish his words, it was as though his throat was suddenly blocked by a sponge. He clearly saw two figures falling from the sky and directly landing on the deck of the fishing boat. It's him. Wang Rui's eyes were fixated on a familiar voice, and disbelief filled his eyes. The moment Tan Xiu's feet landed on the deck, he smiled and circled around the silver-haired old man twice. He looked at the silver-haired old man's eyes that were wide open and full of fear. He raised his hand to touch his chin and said, "What an interesting mutant." He used the genes of wild beasts to transform himself, giving himself the abilities of wild beasts for a short time to enhance his own strength. Unfortunately, the human's life chain was destroyed, and his potential was overexerted, ultimately causing him to lose an important foundation for his progress. The silver-haired old man wanted to move, but a terrifying mountain-like force directly imprisoned him. Even if he exerted all his strength, he still couldn't move. He couldn't even lift his little finger. He wanted to speak, but his mouth seemed to be sewn and his throat was blocked. He couldn't even utter a sound. Fear. It was like a viper trying to grab his heart, making him feel as though he had fallen into an ice cave. Tan Xiu shook his head. He turned around and walked toward Viviani, who was struggling to get up. He reached out to support her and squatted on the deck to let her lean on him. Then, he lightly smiled and said, "I'm really curious. What did you do to deserve such an unscrupulous pursuit?" A trace of vitality finally appeared in Viviani's deathly gray eyes. She felt as though she was dreaming. She could feel Tan Xiu's hand supporting her and looked at the face that had been popping up in her mind countless times recently. She thought that she would never see Tan Xiu again in this life, and she even felt a deep regret deep inside. But, now, he unexpectedly appeared in front of her alive. Even the horrifying scene just now seemed to be related to him. Viviani's voice was a bit hoarse. She didn't know what to say for a moment. "You didn't expect that I would suddenly appear here, did you?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "Did you see the hope of survival?" Yes. Viviani indeed saw the hope. In her eyes, Tan Xiu was an unfathomable person. Back when she was in Jingmen Island, he didn't seem to have a very strong power. But now that she saw him again, she could deeply feel the unfathomable feeling from him. "Since you can see the hope of survival, then live well in the future," Tan Xiu smilingly said. "Living is the most real thing." Viviani took a deep breath to suppress her surging emotions. Then, she seriously asked, "How did you appear here? Those lightning bolts just now, were you the one who made them? Do you think I have that kind of ability?" Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "I don't know." Viviani shook her head. "Well, then don't ask since you don't know." Tan Xiu chuckled. "I just happened to see you being chased. Considering that we're old acquaintances, I helped you." "You haven't answered my question yet. What did you do? Why did they chase you with such great fanfare?" Viviani suddenly smiled. The vitality in her eyes grew more intense, and the smile on her face turned brighter. It was as though she had thought of something worth celebrating. She spoke with a cheerful tone, "I've killed my enemies, and a few of them as well. They were the ones who set up all kinds of traps behind my back and killed my loved ones one after another." "Not bad." Tan Xiu gave a thumbs up and praised. Viviani's fair face blushed and she said with an embarrassed expression, "But the last one was from Savage Mammoth. They chased me after they found me. I've been running for more than half a month, yet they still caught up with me here. In the beginning, the people sent by Savage Mammoth to kill me were very weak. I killed a lot of them. I don't remember the exact number, but it should be around 100 or 200 people. But the more time passed, the stronger the people chasing me became. Fortunately, you arrived in time to save me, else I would have been killed by them. Chapter 765. Tan Xiao gradually understood Viviani's bitter experience and secretly admired her ability. Those mutants of Savage Mammoth were indeed very strong. Some of them were even comparable to experts at the early stage of Foundation establishment, such as the silver-haired old man. Viviani was indeed very strong. If she could unleash her full power, even experts at the early stage of Foundation establishment would not be her match. However, there were too many waves of enemies chasing her, and more experts were coming. Even if she went all out to kill them, there were still times when her hands would soften. Even if she desperately tried to escape, she was still not as good as the Savage Mammoth's members. Tang Xiu smiled and gestured to Ji Qimei. Ji Qimei immediately snorted coldly. More than a dozen experts of Savage Mammoth who were hiding in the cabin seemed to have their necks pinched by an invisible big hand. Their feet kept flailing as they were dragged out of the cabin. The strange scene made Viviani's mouth gape wide open with disbelief written all over her face. Tan Xiu flipped his hand and took out a dagger. He stuffed it into Viviani's hand and smilingly said, "They're your enemies, so you'll be the one to take their lives." Viviani was stunned. She looked down at the dagger in her hand and then at the Savage Mammoth's members, whose faces gradually turned red as though they were hanged. After hesitating for a moment, she gritted her teeth and struggled to stand up. Then, she walked toward those people step by step. Puff, the dagger stabbed one of them in the heart and was quickly pulled out. Then, she stabbed the others one by one. In just half a minute, more than a dozen Savage Mammoth members were killed by her. As she walked toward the silver-haired old man, she turned to look at Tan Xiu and asked, "Can I also kill him?" Tan Xiu made an inviting gesture and smilingly said, "These mutants can also be called bastards. You can do whatever you want with them." Viviani heavily nodded and gratefully looked at Tan Xiu. Then, she fiercely stabbed the silver-haired old man's heart with the dagger in her hand. As though she wasn't satisfied, she pulled out the dagger and fiercely stabbed the silver-haired old man's throat. Although her strength was extremely weak, it still pierced a few centimeters. Phew! Viviani pulled out the dagger and staggered back a few steps. Had it not been for Tang Xiu's quick reflexes to quickly support her, she would have fallen down again. Tan Xiu smiled and asked, "How do you feel now?" "It's very complicated," said Viviani in all seriousness. "But I'm thirsty for power." The corners of Tan Xiu's mouth curled into a smile. He hadn't expected Viviani to be so tactful. He hadn't even spoken his true intentions, yet she had already brought up the topic. Possessing power is naturally the dream of countless people. However, dreams were just dreams. Those who could obtain opportunities to increase their strength were few and far between. However, if such an opportunity is placed in front of you, but you have to pay a huge price for it, are you willing to accept it? "What's the price?" asked Viviani. Tan Xiu said, "For example, freedom." Viviani was silent for a long time before she firmly nodded and said, "I do." Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Since you are willing, then come with me. You should have seen the horrifying scene just now, right? If you come with me, let alone these mutants chasing you, even if all the enemies of the Savage Mammoth are chasing you, you can easily annihilate them." "You can give me such an opportunity?" asked Viviani in astonishment. "Of course, I can," said Tan Xiu. "Why else would I tell you this?" "Alright, let's go back after greeting that kind-hearted person." Viviani turned to look at the two liners in the distance. She then looked at Wang Rui, who was standing on one of the liners. She then asked with an inquiring expression, "You mean Mr. Wang?" "You know me." "I also know this Mr. Wang you mentioned," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "He saw something he shouldn't have seen today, so I must deal with this matter." After that, Tan Xiu directly hugged Viviani in his arms. He lifted his feet and walked step by step in the void toward the liner a kilometer away. As he stood in front of the liner, he looked at the shocked faces of the old man from Qingqing Mountain, Wang Rui, and his men. Then, he indifferently smiled and said, "Wang Rui, how do you feel about watching the show?" Wang Rui's throat was a bit dry and his lips shivered a few times. Then, he suddenly asked, Tan Xiu, are you a cultivator? You can say that. Tan Xiu nodded. A bitter expression appeared on Wang Rui's handsome face as he slowly said, I finally understand why you didn't want to fight with me at that time. It seems that I was too arrogant before. You're aware of your own shortcomings. If you can change it, you'll still be a promising talent in the future. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Is this your Qingqing Mountain's elder? Not bad. You can even break the shackles of a martial arts grandmaster and reach a higher level. The old man from Qingqing Mountain respectfully cupped his fists and said, Wang Luzhong greets immortal master. No need to be so polite. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, It's just a coincidence that we met. It's just that you have some talent in cultivation, but you're somewhat lacking in being a person. I hope you can change this bad habit in the future and don't look down on others. I think you should learn from Wang Rui in this aspect. The old man from Qingqing Mountain looked embarrassed. He knew what Tan Xiu was referring to. After all, he was the one who gave up Viviani and eventually let her fall into the hands of the Savage Mammoth organization. However, despite being reprimanded by Tan Xiu, he didn't dare to have the slightest complaint, nor did he refute. His tone was still respectful as he respectfully said, I'll definitely change it in the future. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile as he looked at Wang Rui again and said, You helped Viviani today, so she owes you a favor. You can contact me if you need her to repay this favor in the future. As for the others, I don't need your memory anymore. In an instant, Ji Qimei made a hand seal and sent a stream of light into the minds of the Qingqing Mountain old man and the others. Wang Rui's expression drastically changed as everyone fell to the ground. Tan Xiu, you, Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt him. After waiting for half a minute, he saw the Qingqing Mountain old man open his blank eyes and shake his head as he crawled up from the ground. What's wrong with me? Who are they? Wang Rui's pupils shrunk as monstrous waves rose inside his heart. He already realized what kind of method this was. It was a terrifying method to erase other people's memories. Who was she? How could this old lady have such a terrifying ability? Tan Xiu hugged Viviani and didn't put her down on the ground. He sniffed the pleasant smell coming from her body. Tan Xiu gently patted her arm and lightly smiled. Wang Rui, I think you should know what to do about today's matter. Viviani is injured and I need to take her away as soon as possible. So we'll take our leave first. See you later. See you later. Wang Rui felt a blur before his eyes as Tan Xiu, Viviani, and the terrifying old lady's figures suddenly disappeared. A deep sense of loss arose in his heart, because from this moment on, he was already aware of one fact. He would never be able to surpass Tan Xiu in terms of cultivation in this lifetime, let alone defeat him. The two of them were simply not people from the same world. The Qingqing Mountain old man's body trembled as he glanced around and exclaimed, What kind of ability is this? This speed. Wang Rui shot a deep look at the place where Tan Xiu disappeared and slowly said, I can't tell you who they are. I hope you can forget what you just saw. It's only good for you and our Qingqing Mountain. Jingmen Island, Everlasting Feast Hall. Viviani only felt a blur before her eyes as the thunderous weather on the heavenly mountain disappeared. Although she was still in Tan Xiu's embrace, she was shocked to find that Tan Xiu had stepped on the ground at this moment. The surrounding woods and buildings indicated that they had arrived on dry land. This place is... Viviani suppressed the shock inside her heart and asked with a confused expression. I'll ask you one last question, Viviani, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Do you still have any concerns? Or unfinished business? Viviani thought for a while before she nodded and said, I do. I just want to destroy the Savage Mammoth organization. Because I've been in contact with the Savage Mammoth's people and found them to be very evil. They're simply devils. Only this one? Asked Tan Xiu. It seems like it's the only one, said Viviani. I have no relatives, and I've already left the Holy See. Therefore, I have nothing else to worry about. Tan Xiu nodded and said, if that's the case, then you'll be a member of the Everlasting Feast Hall in life and a ghost of the Everlasting Feast Hall in death. This is the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ on Jingmen Island, so you'll stay here for the time being. I'll send someone to arrange your food and clothing, as well as take you to familiarize yourself with the environment here. All right. Viviani replied and then asked, then, when can I get the opportunity? Standing at the side, Ji Qimei indifferently said, little girl, it's already your opportunity to be brought here. That's right. Someone will naturally teach you the real cultivation technique after you familiarize yourself with this place, said Tan Xiu with a smile. While they were talking, Gu Xiaoshue's figure flashed from a distance and appeared in front of Tan Xiu in just a few breaths. She looked at Viviani with a curious expression and then said, Grand Master, Lulu just called me to find you. She said it's urgent. Ouyang Lulu. With a bit of curiosity, Tan Xiu took out his mobile and dialed Ouyang Lulu's number. Just as the ringtone rang, the call was picked up and Ouyang Lulu's urgent voice came out of the phone, Tan Xiu? Is it Tan Xiu? It's me. Said Tan Xiu. What happened? Ouyang Lulu hurriedly said, where are you now? Hurry back to Demonic City. Han Qinggu has an accident. Tan Xiu's complexion changed and asked in a deep voice, what happened to her? Chapter 766. Tan Xiu hung up the phone. His expression was as cold as the frost in the 12th month, and his eyes were filled with worry. He had thought countless times that he and Han Qinggu, or to be precise, Shui Qingqing had nothing to do with each other anymore. If there was any relationship between them, it would be the hatred between enemies. But, he didn't realize that whether it was Shui Qingqing in the immortal world or Han Qinggu now, both of them were always affecting him. Buy me the next flight back to Magic City. Tan Xiu wanted to let Ji Qimei send him back to Magic City, but after thinking for a moment, he felt that it was not appropriate. He dared to let Ji Qimei send him back to the sea area of Jingmen Island because the satellite monitoring would be greatly affected by the bad weather, and the radiation area would not reach here. But once he reached the mainland, once Ji Qimei flew him in the sky, they would definitely be captured by the satellite monitoring. Magic City. In the deepest part of the Paradise Manor, Han Qinggu was sitting cross-legged on the bed in a room with a pale complexion and ominous glint in her eyes. Her disheveled appearance made her look particularly distressed. Her wrists and feet were tightly bound by 4 fine steel chains, fixing her to the 4 corners of the room. Cultivation deviation. This was a problem that cultivators were prone to encounter. Every cultivator would suffer from cultivation deviation. If it was light, they would become mentally deranged, causing serious internal injuries. If it was serious, their blood and energy would flow in reverse, causing their body to explode and die. Outside the room, Ouyang Lulu's beautiful face was filled with deep worry. She didn't like Han Qinggu and even regarded Han Qinggu as her rival in love. But now that Han Qinggu had become like this, she still felt uncomfortable inside. Furthermore, she had already started cultivating, so she was aware that there was a possibility that her cultivation would go berserk in the future. This caused her to be much more cautious when it came to cultivating. How is it? When will Tang Xiu come back? Han Jintong looked at Ouyang Lulu as she hung up the phone and asked with an anxious look on his old face. He said that he will immediately rush back from Jingmen Island, said Ouyang Lulu. If there is no accident, he will be back in Shanghai before 2 p.m. Han Jintong hurriedly asked, did Tan Xiu say on the phone whether my granddaughter is in danger or not? Her current state makes my heart ache. No. Ouyang Lulu shook her head. Han Jintong quickly grabbed his phone and found Tan Xiu's number. He wanted to call him, but he was afraid that Tan Xiu would be disgusted. After hesitating for a moment, his finger didn't press the dial button in the end. At this moment, what Han Jintong and Ouyang Lulu didn't know was that Han Qinggu, who was bound by the iron chain, had fallen into a battle between heaven and man. In her mind, countless visions appeared one after another. The series of images was like a movie, constantly influencing her life experiences of the past 20 years. Immortal world. Immortal, sect, lover, betrayal. Han Qinggu felt as though she was in heaven for a moment and then fell into hell the next moment. The changes in her emotions nearly drove her insane. Her consciousness was completely immersed in those fragments, which were intertwined in a complicated way. Reality and dreamland were in conflict, so much so that she didn't even know that she had been chained up, nor did she know that she was already a lunatic in the eyes of Ouyang Lulu and Han Jintong. Jingmen Island Airport. Although Ouyang Lulu's tone was very urgent on the phone, Tan Xiu was a bit relieved. Because from what Ouyang Lulu told him, it was Han Qinggu who had fallen into cultivation deviation and became mentally deranged. It was as though she had gone crazy, rather than her body exploding and dying directly. However, just in case, he still hurried here. It didn't take long for him to board the flight to Shanghai. Mo, Jin Shi, and the rest of the group were still following him as usual. Boss, will we fall into cultivation deviation in the future? As the passenger plane soared in the blue sky and white clouds, Mo, who was sitting next to Tan Xiu in the first-class cabin, asked with a bit of worry in his eyes. Tang Xiu nodded and said, every cultivator has the possibility of falling into the crisis of cultivation deviation. As the name suggests, cultivation deviation is manifested in two aspects. First, there is a problem in the cultivation. It may be due to a lack of cultivation techniques or encountering a difficult problem in the cultivation process. Second, it's the lack of mental state. For example, if 100 cultivators fall into cultivation deviation, more than 95% of them will fall into the second category. It's a problem in their mental state, leading to the birth of inner demons. Is there any way to solve this problem? Asked Mo with a nod. Of course there is, said Tan Xiu. The best way is to have an extremely high mental state. Even if inner demons are born, it won't affect the cultivator much. Furthermore, there are some secret treasures that can calm the mind and focus the mind to avoid the birth of inner demons as much as possible. Mo's expression moved and he asked with a bit of expectation, how can I get such secret treasures, boss? Do you know how to refine them? I can naturally refine them, but the materials needed are extremely precious, answered Tan Xiu. Some cultivators may not necessarily be able to get these materials even after cultivating for thousands of years. Mo looked disappointed. Although he had become a cultivator, he still felt awe and reverence for thousands of years. As the saying goes, those who don't die are thieves. Ordinary people could live up to 100 years old, which was already considered as longevity. Anyone who could live up to 200 years old was an old freak among freaks. But if anyone could live up to 1,000 years, wouldn't that mean that they had become a demon? What exactly is the state of mind? The state of mind can only be understood and not explained in words, said Tan Xiu. It may not be accurate to explain it in layman's terms, but it can also be explained as the tenacity of the mind. The more experiences one has, the stronger the mind is tempered, and the more comprehensions one has, the higher the state of mind will be. You should have heard of the word epiphany. Cultivators need perception, and the more they comprehend, the higher their state of mind will be. Mo nodded with a half-understanding expression. He had yet to encounter such a problem that could only be understood but not explained in words. Perhaps he would understand what the state of mind was when his cultivation reached a higher level in the future. At 12:30 noon, the plane landed at Shanghai Airport. Just as Tan Xiu, Mo, and the others walked out of the airport exit, they saw Ouyang Lulu, who was eagerly waiting outside. You're back, Tan Xiu. Let's hurry to the Paradise Manor, said Ouyang Lulu immediately as she greeted him. Tan Xiao nodded while walking and asked, how's Han Qingwu's situation? She really went crazy. Ouyang Lulu forced a wry smile and said, she has been in the Paradise Manor for the past few days, so I arranged her to stay in Han Jintong's Western-style building. But in the middle of the night last night, she suddenly went crazy and even collapsed the whole building. Fortunately, only Han Jintong lived there, else ordinary people would have been smashed to death. Ouyang Lulu suddenly realized that she had gone off topic. She quickly returned to the main topic and said, Han Qingwu's condition is very bad now. She's like a lunatic. If it weren't for Han Jintong and Shanjena joining hands to subdue Han Qingwu and lock her up with fine steel chains, I'm afraid she would have caused a big mess. Tan Xiao nodded after hearing it. Going crazy was a kind of mental disorder. Even if she was injured, there was a way to solve her injury as long as he could arrive in time. However, mental disorder was very troublesome. If he was still a supreme in the immortal world, he could solve this problem by lifting his finger. But his current strength was very weak. Even if he encountered a golden core stage cultivator, he might not be able to defeat the opposite party, let alone solve the most mysterious mental disorder. 2:00 in the afternoon. Tan Xiao appeared in the room where Han Qingwu was locked up. He watched Han Qingwu struggling desperately with disheveled hair and a crazy appearance. He sighed inwardly. He faintly guessed that it might be related to some of Han Qingwu's memories from her previous life, but he was not sure yet. Lulu, wait outside. No one is allowed to enter the room without my permission. Tan Xiao ordered and closed the door from the inside. Afterward, Tan Xiao went to the table in the corner and took out cinnabar ink, yellow paper, and a writing brush from his interspatial ring and began to draw some talismans. Spirit-subduing talisman. Mind-cleansing talisman. These two talismans had a good magical effect on alleviating mental disorder. If Han Qingwu's condition was not too bad, she should be able to calm down in a short time. However, when Tan Xiao finished drawing the two talismans and used them on Han Qingwu, it did not have any effect. Han Qingwu, who had gone crazy, even treated him as a target. Although she was very strong, her mental disorder made it so that she could only use less than 1/10 of her strength. It seems that I can only use that move. Tan Xiao sighed inwardly. That method was very powerful. At least it could solve the problem of Han Qingwu's mental disorder. But using that method would have some effects on his body. Tan Xiao bit his finger and a few drops of blood were forced out by Tan Xiao. Ancient and vicissitude talismans were drawn in the void by Tan Xiao. The golden talismans seemed to contain infinite mysteries and gradually merged with the blood that had fused together. Immediately, the red blood turned golden, and a stream of light was faintly discernible. Blood soul curse, demon suppression. Tan Xiao's body trembled and he slapped the golden blood between Han Qingwu's eyebrows. Suddenly, Han Qingwu's body seemed to have been struck by lightning. After twitching a few times, she slowly fell to the ground. Tan Xiao pinched the fine steel chain that bound her, carried her delicate body to the bed, and then reached out to cover her with the quilt. Only then did he stand quietly by the bed for a long time without saying a word. He could clearly see the painful expression that emerged between Han Qingwu's eyebrows, which showed that Han Qingwu's consciousness was still fluctuating violently. Is it the influence of the memories of her previous life? Will she remember the time when she was in the immortal world? After a long time, Tan Xiao left a deep sigh, turned to the door, opened the door and walked out. Tan Xiao, how is my granddaughter? Han Jintong, who was outside the door, rushed to Tan Xiao in an instant and asked nervously. Chapter 767. Tan Xiao was silent for a moment and slowly said, there's no danger to her life. But whether the price of cultivation deviation is big or small depends on Han Qingwu herself. If she can wake up in time and adjust her problem, she may be able to recover after some time. But if she can't wake up in time, I'm afraid she won't be able to walk on the path of cultivation again. Han Jintong's heart thumped and a chill crazily grew inside him. He was perfectly aware of what it meant for a cultivator to not be able to walk on the path of cultivation again. That was losing hope and the ability to become stronger. Cultivators. If they were to be mediocre for the rest of their lives and never be able to appreciate the wonderful life of a cultivator, it would be more painful than death. He didn't know if his granddaughter could bear such a result. Is there no other way? Asked Han Jintong hurriedly. It's not that there is no way. Some heavenly treasures can solve the sequela of cultivation deviation in an instant, said Tan Xiu lightly. But I don't have those heavenly treasures, and I'm afraid it's very difficult to find them on Earth. I've done everything I can, so she can only rely on herself for the rest. As a matter of fact, there was a situation that Tan Xiu didn't mention because the probability of it happening was less than 1 in 10 million. That was when a person who had cultivation deviation would have an epiphany after finally waking up. The benefits of that epiphany could completely make up for the price of cultivation deviation, and they could even obtain some benefits. Overcoming the heart's devil, controlling it, and destroying it. Being able to do this, one would be able to go further on the path of cultivation in the future and become stronger. Oh, you stay here and don't let anyone come near. Wait for Han Qinggu to wake up and tell me immediately. Tan Xiu then left with Ouyang Lulu. After arriving at Ouyang Lulu's residence, Tan Xiu sat on the sofa with a headache. Han Qinggu's sudden situation caught him off guard. He originally thought that if Han Qinggu could keep cultivating, she might be able to ascend and become an immortal in the future. Even if she couldn't restore the memories of her past life on Earth, she would definitely be able to do so after breaking through to the immortal realm. At that time, it would be time for him to settle the accounts with her in the immortal world. But if she stopped at this stage forever, would he have to wait for her to be reincarnated and step onto the path of cultivation again? Even if she had the chance to struggle free from the sea of bitterness of samsara and be reborn as a human, the chances of her recovering the memories of her previous life were extremely small and pitifully small. Ouyang Lulu realized that Tan Xiu was in a bad mood, so she sat down beside him. In order to adjust Tan Xiu's mood, she immediately changed the topic and said, Tan Xiu, what did you do before? He didn't even participate in such an important event like the magnificent Tang Corporation's project bidding? I really don't know what Kang Xia is thinking, to actually give such a big project to a company that hasn't even completed the architectural design. Sinyuan Group. Tan Xiu's expression changed, secretly admiring Chen Zixue's methods. Although he had previously told Tang Xia that if there was no one more suitable than Sinyuan Group, then she would give the bidding opportunity to Sinyuan Group. However, Kang Xia was the one who made the final decision on the project bidding. He knew her better than anyone else. She wouldn't easily agree just because he was optimistic about Chen Zixue. I've been busy with important things recently, so I don't have much time to pay attention to the company's affairs. Kang Xia's ability is very strong. She must have her reasons for choosing the Sinyuan Group. What's more, before I left, I met with the Sinyuan Group's boss, Chen Zixue, and I also saw the unfinished design. It's very good. I recently learned about Chen Zixue and the Sinyuan Group, and I found that this guy is indeed very powerful, said Ouyang Lulu. But he's a bit too ruthless. Many of his means are taboo in the business world, yet he dares to use them. Survival of the fittest is the law of nature, Tan Xiu shook his head. Some people say that the business world is a battlefield, and it's either you die or I perish in a contest with the enemy. The means are not important, but the result is the most important. In order to be the final winner and continue to survive in the future, what's the point of scheming and scheming? What's the point of being despicable and shameless? As long as one is strong enough and can continue to become stronger, all problems will no longer be a problem. You're just twisting words and forcing logic, said Ouyang Lulu with dissatisfaction. How is this twisting words and forcing logic? Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing. Let me give you an analogy. In the imperial power struggle, which of the final winners who can sit on the throne didn't have their hands stained with blood, stepping on countless corpses to sit on it? A lot of things don't depend on the process, but the result. Let me ask you, how is the current Sinyuan group compared to 10 years ago? It's countless times stronger, said Ouyang Lulu. Isn't that it? Tan Xiao nodded. Every successful person will have a lot of enemies. But you see, isn't the Sinyuan group getting more and more powerful? And Chen Zishua's wealth is getting more and more, no? Ouyang Lulu was speechless. She felt that what Tan Xiao said was very reasonable, but it was still difficult for her to accept it. She was not a good person in the past. Being able to open a casino in Jingmen Island showed that she had a crazy heart. However, opening a casino was like going all the way to the dark side, a very pure dark business. On the surface, the Sinyuan group was a decent business, but the operator used a lot of shady means, which made her feel disgusted. Ouyang Lulu couldn't argue with Tan Xiao, so she didn't feel like talking about this topic anymore. She got up and brewed a pot of tea. After placing it in front of Tan Xiao, she said, "That old man Moe has been bewitched recently. Don't you want to see him? It looks like Shanjena can't stand it anymore." Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment. He immediately recalled Mo Yi's research topic and immediately asked, "What's going on?" "The research has hit a bottleneck." "Yeah, it's a very serious bottleneck," said Ouyang Lulu with a playful smile. "I heard Shanjena complain about it. If she didn't expect you to give her some medicinal pills, I'm afraid she would have quit her job long ago." Pfft. Tan Xiao's somewhat depressed mood was instantly smashed by Ouyang Lulu's last sentence. He couldn't help but laugh. He picked up the teacup and drank a mouthful of fragrant tea. Then, he got up and said, "Let's go. Let's go see Professor Mo and Shanjena." 10 minutes later. Tan Xiao saw Moe, who was wearing a white coat and a pair of nearsighted glasses. He was busy next to a lot of scientific instruments. Shanjena, on the other hand, sat listlessly on the sofa close to the door, showing a drowsy look. "Shanjena, draw half a tube of blood again." "I think I've determined the direction," Moe suddenly said without looking up. Shanjena's complexion changed. She immediately jumped up from the sofa and angrily shouted, "Moye, you bastard. I've heard this sentence more than 20 times, but what's the result? Tell me, what's the result? Our bloodkin's blood is so precious that it takes a long time to replenish a drop. You've taken more than 20 tubes of blood from me." Moe frowned and turned his head. Just as his eyes fell on Shanjena, he noticed that Tan Xiao and Ouyang Lulu were standing quietly behind her with a smile. "Tan Xiao, you're here." Moe looked pleasantly surprised as he put down the things in his hands and came over. Upon hearing this, Shanjena turned her head and looked behind. When she saw Tan Xiao, she immediately sprinted to Tan Xiao and cried out with grievance, "Please save me, Mr. Tang. This old bastard is too evil. He has no ability and can't research the medicine, yet he forces me to draw my blood every day. I'm going to turn into a dried corpse if this keeps going on." Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and gently patted Shanjena's shoulder. He then took out a porcelain bottle from his interspatial ring and handed it to Shanjena, saying, "This is a medicinal pill I just refined recently. It should be good for you after you take it. Don't rush to take it now. Wait until you rest at night." "All right." Shanjena was ecstatic and couldn't bear to part with the porcelain bottle. Her heart itched and she couldn't wait to pull the cork and pour the medicinal pill inside into her mouth. Tan Xiao looked at Moe and smilingly said, "Did you encounter a problem, Professor Mo?" "Yeah." Moe forced a smile. "The blood cells of the blood kin are too active. I've never been able to find a compatible substitute. Do you think it's possible to use Chinese medicinal herbs?" Tan Xiao thought for a while and asked. Moe stared blankly and shook his head. "I don't know. Even if I do, I don't know anything about Chinese medicinal herbs. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment. Then, he suddenly took out his mobile and dialed a cell number. After the ringtone rang 7 or 8 times, the call was connected and an old voice came out of the phone. Is there something, Tan Xiu? I don't know if you're interested in something, senior, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I'm researching a medicine here. Once the research is successful, it will greatly contribute to human lifespan. I'm not interested. Even if I'm interested, I don't have the time, said Gui Jianqiu. I found something interesting and need some time to study it. What interesting thing? Asked Tan Xiu hurriedly. Gui Jianqiu was silent for a while and then slowly said, Do you know that there are other creatures in this world besides humans, beasts, and birds? I know, said Tan Xiu. You really know? Gui Jianqiu was surprised. Yeah, I really know, said Tan Xiu. Since you know, then I'll explain it to you, said Gui Jianqiu. I recently found a severed arm in Mist Source Island. The severed arm looks like a human arm, but it's covered with golden hair. I even analyzed and judged that the hardness of this arm and the coagulated blood are very unusual. I got it. The severed arm you found should be from a beast man, said Tan Xiu. However, I think that you should give up on researching that severed arm and join my research. Because the topic I'm researching here is also related to these creatures. Gui Jianqiu's interest was piqued and he asked, Tell me about it. I'll agree if it can move me. Tan Xiu glanced at Shanjena and said with a smile, I have a friend. She's a member of the blood kin, also known as a vampire. My researchers here are using her blood to study a drug. A vampire? Gui Jianqiu's exclamation came from the phone. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.